Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for This Week in Google is provided by Cachefly. CACHEFLY.com. This is Twig, This Week in Google, episode 333 for December 30th, 2015, the year's best. It's time for Twig and a very special episode as we close out on 2015. Jason Howell, our editors, and you have put together your favorite memories of the year. So what this is about, what you're about to see, is a clip festival, the highlights, and there have been some great ones, of This Week in Google. Happy New Year, everybody. We'll be back with a brand new show next week. I'm Leo Laporte. Thanks for being here. Up next, the best of Twig. Thank you for coming out for our New Year's Eve party. Jeff
it was great. It was just great.
Still beardless, which he did for $20,000. I am still hairless, which I did for $40,000. We raised $75,000 for UNICEF, the United Nations Children's Fund. Isn't that great?
Amazing.
Nice job. That's Gina Trapani from ThinkUp.com.
Hello.
And all about Android. And I have some very sad news. This is her last Twig.
Well, my last weekly, right? I mean, We
said come back whenever you want, but I know that the business at ThinkUp has gotten busy, and you just don't have time to do. She's also leaving All About Android. In fact, you don't have any podcasts, right?
No, I won't be doing any podcasts for the first time in like 6 years.
Wow.
Yeah, this is just so sad and bittersweet. But you know, I started building this company, ThinkUp, and I think we have a shot at making something that is sustainable. But it was like a weird kind of year. 2014 was hard. You know, we raised some venture capital, and then we figured out that we're a business, but we're not a venture capital business, meaning that, you know, we're not the hockey stick guys or, you know, 10 times whatever. We're just a regular business kind of building revenue very slowly. So we decided, hey, you know what? We're not going to do VC. We had to lay off a bunch of our team, which was really tough.
I didn't know that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I mean, my team was fantastic, and everyone was extremely understanding and totally got it. And everyone landed on their feet, and it was a small team to begin with. But yeah, it was tough. It was definitely painful. But, you know, Anil, my co-founder, and I, you know, really want to give this a go, and we want to work on it full time, the two of us together, and that's what we plan to do in 2015. So it's going to be a full-time job and a half. And I've just been trying to be real honest with him and with my family and try to figure out.
You have a new baby, and I mean, you just moved, and so there's a lot on your plate. I completely understand. And I'm
still bereft. I'm still very sad.
Both Jeff and I had the same reaction the chat room is having right now because they're hearing it for the first time. I said in capital letters, "This is horrible." Jeff, what did you write? It was great. I got to read Jeff's tribute to Gina. Because it was. You said it. Of course, you're the wordsmith. You said it better than either Lisa or I could do. You just quite moving. Let me read it to you. I am so depressed about this, Gina.
Oh wait, this is our email. Yep.
If there's anything that would make the show possible, I'd be so happy to keep working with you. And we have worked out something, so stay tuned. Gina's genius is bringing both a technologist's perspective and a profoundly ethical view of technology. And she's the nicest person I know. These are going to be impossible shoes to fill. And we all agree.
Speaking of shoes, I then tried to push Gina prevaricated, but I tried to push that we could do this like a Shark Tank where Barbara and Lori shift off. Gina could be the part-time. And your response, Gina?
I said, I only wish that I could wear heels the way that Lori and Barbara wear heels.
That email thread was quite fun, I must admit. And Jeff really said it eloquently for Lisa and me both. There's no way we can replace you. You have agreed, I'm happy to say, to come back once a month.
Yes, and thank you for letting me do that, because I tell you, the idea of quitting completely cold turkey really freaked me out. This was such a hard decision. I mean, we've been through a lot together. It's been 6 years, 400 hours once a week. I mean, I've lived in 4 different apartments. I've done the show from 2 different offices, from my mother's basement. I mean, yeah, I had a child. I mean, yeah, a lot has happened. We've been together for a long time, and I really wrestled with it. And it's just a matter of kind of hours in the day. And part of it is that I'm primarily a developer. You guys are embedded in news, right? You're
It's easy for us. It's all we think about all week long.
Yeah, yeah, but there have been times, and I'm sure that our listeners have heard it. There are times when I show up and I'm like, I haven't heard the story. I haven't been reading the news. So it's a little bit more prep time for me, and it takes my head out of, I get into that coder flow thing, and I'm just gonna have more on my plate this year. So it was such a hard decision, but I've so enjoyed my time on the show, and I am going to be back once a month. Thank you. And if I can, harass Jason and Ron into having me on to
I don't think that'll be hard.
Harass? Are you kidding me?
I will. Hopefully, I can come
Anytime.
on.
But let me ask you. Let's be honest with me. If you had won the App Arena, would you have stayed?
Is this what we needed to do to keep you?
Is
Gina?
that because I could fix it? Windows 8.1 vulnerability. Microsoft knows about it. In fact, they've known about it for 3 months because Google told them. Microsoft waited. Google announced it. They said after 90 days, it's fair game. Microsoft, I'm sure, would have preferred that Google said nothing. But Google's point, and I think it's well taken, is, if there's a security hole, it's reasonable for us to give the company time to patch. But it's also a public's right to know if this hole exists, because the company could otherwise just ignore it, and attackers could find it. Now, don't worry so much, because Microsoft points out that a bad guy would have to have valid login credentials and be able to log on locally to a targeted machine. It's not something that could easily be done over the internet.
I have weird mixed feelings about this. It feels like, on one hand, I totally understand that Google notified Microsoft about this vulnerability, gave them 90 days, and once the 90 days are up, even though Microsoft didn't issue the patch, announced the bug, published code on how to exploit the bug.
They showed you how to do it.
I sort of get it, but I also wonder a little bit, like, somebody from Google couldn't pick up the phone to call somebody from Microsoft 5 days before and be like, hey, no, really? We're going to...
Well, they may have.
It felt like a little bit of a public shaming, slap on the wrist, PR thing going on here at the risk of, opening up users to a vulnerability. Like, I really can see both sides of it.
I'd love to get your opinions on this. We talked about David Cameron's speech on Security Now yesterday.
Oh, man.
I'll bet you did.
What a train wreck.
And I think Cory Doctorow had a good takedown on Boing Boing. But
he did.
So Cameron, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, says that it should be illegal to make a communications product that the Home Secretary can't listen in on. And he said, it's okay, you're protected, because the Home Secretary would have to sign a warrant for us to listen in on. Now, I have to say, I think it's one thing for David Cameron to say that. It's another thing for it to actually happen.
But what it reveals in the attitude, this is Greenwald's argument, what it reveals is just a terrible view of our rights.
Right. And Cory argues it's also ignorance.
Yes,
yeah. He says, David Cameron says there should be no means of communication which we cannot read. And no doubt many in his party will agree with him politically, but if they understood the technology, they'd be shocked to their boots. Cory is always eloquent in this stuff. So he says Cameron doesn't know what he's asking for. Because in order to make this work, you can ban WhatsApp, you can ban iMessage or Apple's Messages, both of which provide encrypted message passing that the government can't read. But first of all, you sure you want to ban iOS from Great Britain? Okay.
Or Linux.
But then you can't ban Linux. Who do you ban if you're who do you stop if for Linux or BSD?
It makes no sense. It makes no sense. And it's like saying no one is allowed to have door locks just in case we need to come in your house.
Right.
Right.
But it'll be only for your own protection.
Well, okay, but there is an analog there. If you have a gate here in this area, a lot of people in the farm areas have a gate before you can get in, and they have a special key that the fire department, it's a special key the fire department can open. Because if your house is burning down, you don't want the fire trucks to have to stop at the gate or drive them down. So there's an analog for that. The TSA approved locks keep bad guys out, but the TSA has a way of opening them. So there's a precedent. Corey points out, first of all, if you put a backdoor in any kind of software, that not only makes it easy for law enforcement, but criminals, voyeurs, and foreign spies. So you've made all communications insecure.
Right.
Any firms, this is what Cameron's proposing when Corey breaks it down. Any firms within reach of the UK government must be banned from producing secure software. That includes Microsoft and Apple. All major code repositories, GitHub and SourceForge, for example, have to be blocked because that's where you get the open source for programs like TextSecure and others, TrueCrypt. So you got to prevent that. Search engines must not answer queries about web pages that carry secure software. I raised this point yesterday with Steve. It also means that you have to have a backdoor in secure HTTP, HTTPS, SSL. That's not an easy thing to do since that's essentially open. Virtually all academic security work in the UK must cease. Security research must only take place in proprietary research environments where there is no onus to publish one's findings, such as industry R&D and security services. All packets in and out of the country and within the country must be subject to Chinese-style deep packet inspection. We're just talking about that. I'm sure Sandvine has a tool. And any packets that appear to originate from secure software must be dropped. Existing walled gardens like iOS and Xboxes must be ordered to ban their users from installing secure software. Anyone visiting the country from abroad must have their smartphones held at the border until they leave.
That's the fun one, yeah.
Proprietary operating system vendors like Microsoft and Apple must be ordered to redesign their operating systems as walled gardens that only allow users to run software from an app store which will not sell or give secure software to Britons. Free and open source operating systems that power the energy, banking, e-commerce, and infrastructure sectors must be banned outright. So that's why, Steve was upset, and a lot of people are upset about this. I think it's pretty clear. It's unenforceable.
And even if it was enforceable, it's totally, it wouldn't achieve what it's supposedly going to achieve or wants to achieve.
Right.
You criminalize security software, only criminals will have security software.
But what it indicates is a belief that there is a manifest destiny and a right for government to be able to listen to anything we say. And that's the real issue. That's what this reveals. And,
I agree. It's telling into their state of mind.
Well, and unfortunately, in Britain at least, and in lots of other European countries, it's taken for granted that the government has those rights. I think the U.S. is abnormal in a way, in the sense that people won't put up with that kind of stuff.
And that's the sad thing, is that he's blaming the attacks on Charlie. He's saying, well, after the attacks on Charlie Hebdo in France, we've got to do this.
Which makes no sense at all. But that's
what happened in the U.S. As soon as 9/11 happened, we had the Patriot Act. That's the kind of knee-jerk reaction. Here's Prime Minister Cameron speaking. Oh, after an ad. How come there's an ad before the Prime Minister speaks? Apparently, people who are having erectile dysfunction, or maybe they're.
That's actually the Prime Minister.
Yeah, right. I'm sorry. No, it's a Charles Schwab ad.
The first duty of any government is to keep our country and our people safe. The attacks.
How much has been used?
Is that the first duty of any government?
No, it's to protect our freedom, indeed. But how much tyranny has been wrought under that justification?
And as Corey points out, it would not keep us safe.
Right.
It would open all communications to bad guys, spies, and Corey points out, voyeurs.
Paris once again demonstrated the scale of the terrorist threat that we face and the need to have robust powers through our intelligence and security agencies and policing in order to keep our people safe. And the powers that I believe we need, whether on communications data or on the content of communications, I'm very comfortable that those are absolutely right for a modern liberal democracy. But what I've done is, as you know, we legislated very recently.
So what are we going to have here is
communications data.
It's
old-fashioned,
totally
illiberal.
Right. It's totally the opposite of what should be allowed in a liberal
Well,
democracy.
somebody's pointing out in the chat room, and this is true also, that Cameron's faced with, I don't know how significant, but somewhat of a challenge from the right-wing UKIP.
The UKIP, yeah.
And that this may be merely a political statement that he knows has no chance of passing through Parliament.
I think he is trying to saber rattle and look tough.
Yeah.
You know, he's not known for being tough, and this is a great opportunity. Oh, look at all the terrorists.
Yeah.
But look at the justifications we have. In France, there has been, since the Charlie Hebdo murders, there have been, I think, 54 examples of people being arrested for supporting terrorism. Now, after a loud and clear support of free speech, then what turns around? We turn around and we abuse free speech. In the American view, you support even obnoxious speech to support speech. Right? The other problem was there have been great reports, The Guardian and elsewhere, of all of the heads of state who marched alongside Hollande, who do terrible things to free speech.
I know. It was really ironic to watch that parade of dictators.
France themselves just finished arresting someone for something they said.
Right, that's what I'm saying. 54 cases of that.
They arrested a comedian, a well-known but radical comedian in France, because he posted on Facebook, something that they didn't like.
Right after saying we have to uphold free speech.
There's no free speech if you don't say what we agree with.
Right.
Completely.
That's really a case. I don't want to go off the reservation here, but that's one of the shocks to me in the aftermath of the Charlie Hebdo case, is that when I talk about free speech, what I get back often is, oh, you're American, you have a different view. And I wrote about this, that free speech is weirdly, oddly American. And no, it's not peculiarly American. It is a human right. And unless we see it that way.
Right, but the protection of it and the explicit protection of it is unusual to the U.S. In many countries, other things take precedent. Security.
Sure. But
I'm not saying that's right. I'm just.
Yeah, but I think there's a lack of understanding of what free speech means, and that really struck me after this case. And by the way, I also took to task American journalists and newspapers for not publishing the cartoons. I understand. Be clear here. I understand why the Jewish Chronicle didn't publish them.
Yes.
But Margaret Sullivan, the public editor of the New York Times, first time she attacked the issue, she kind of danced around it. But today she came straight out and said the New York Times was wrong not to run the current new cover of Charlie Hebdo, and that it's not offensive by any standard of civility, and it should be there. And even our American newspapers don't really understand, I think, to some extent, that free speech is not just a right for journalism, it's a responsibility.
Well, and this comes up whenever I write about free speech, especially when I'm talking about proprietary platforms like Twitter and Facebook, that are effectively corporate-owned kind of town squares. Someone will say, well, free speech only applies to government. Like the First Amendment is only designed to apply to government, and so free speech is just a fiction unless it applies to how government treats citizens, which doesn't make any sense to me at all. I mean, the whole reason why there's a First Amendment is that it's a principle worth protecting.
Matthew, no, I'll argue that case. No, the reason that is that part of your free speech is as an editor. Part of Leo has free speech. Leo can say, Jarvis, I just don't like you. I've had it with you. I'm fed up with you and your damn Chromebook. Get off my air. And he has a perfect right to do that. That is part of his.
'Cause I'm not the government.
But the government can't tell me to stop extolling the virtues of Chromebooks. It's not the government's role.
Right.
But Leo Laporte has a private company has a full and complete right to decide what speech it chooses to distribute, and that's not censorship.
Sure it does. And my only point when I wrote about Facebook was Mark Zuckerberg made a point of standing up in favor of free speech and against censorship, and said he stood behind all of those principles, despite the fact that Facebook routinely censors things for no reason or for reasons it doesn't discuss. I'm not saying they don't have the right to do that. I'm just saying you can't have it both ways. You can't say that.
Well, no, I think you can. I think you can. You set your standards, because otherwise, what we'd have, and this is why we have Section 230 in the U.S., is that if it were a binary switch, we would have no forums and no discussion in the U.S., because if you were held responsible, as for example Europeans are, for the things that occur on your site or the things that you link to, then you would have no discussion. So Section 230 protects us from making our own judgments, so that we can make our own judgments. We can let things go up that we disapprove of. We can take things down. That's our freedom. No, I have to disagree with you there. I think that
right, but Section 230 protects them. If Section 230 protects them, then why do they take so much stuff down?
Because, well, look at another way. Forget the Facebook. Let's say that the comments on my blog. I take down things there that are offensive and stupid and off target and abusive, and that is not only my right, but I believe my responsibility to have a good community there. If you believe that all speech is equal, all speech must be allowed, it's allowed by government, but that doesn't mean that I should be forced to be the host for it.
It's not inconsistent. It's not inconsistent for you to support censorship on Facebook and be against government censorship. That's not inconsistent.
That's my point. That's not censorship, Leo.
Or whatever. Well, you could call it censorship. Okay.
It is censorship.
Let's say it's censorship.
Censorship is when government censors you from speech.
I'm willing to broaden. I'm willing to agree with Matthew to broaden it to say censorship is censorship, and it just cutting something off your site for whatever reason is a form of censorship. But it's still not inconsistent to say I have the right to do that as a private business. But and we should all fight against is the government doing that.
Yes.
That's not inconsistent. So it's not inconsistent for Mark Zuckerberg to say, yeah, of course we have to control the environment on Facebook, but I don't want the government arresting somebody because they say something that the government disagrees with. That's not inconsistent.
But the fact is that Facebook and Twitter are used by governments to censor. They are actively censoring people on behalf of
government. They also say, Matthew, in that case, they always say that they must follow local laws.
Right.
Now, Twitter does it more cleverly. Right. Twitter does it more cleverly, where it will cut out something in France and leave it in the rest of the world if the French government demands it be taken down.
Not just that. They actually fight requests in court on behalf of their users. They fight, and in some cases they have put content back that they took away because the government of whatever country didn't make a good enough case. Facebook.
So you're talking about a couple different things. Time. One is when they're an agent of government. When government says you must take this down under law, and they do that because they follow the law. Even if they don't like it, and they may fight it, but they lose and they take it down. That's one thing. It's another thing when they choose to take something down on their own. Now, Twitter was indeed a very, very open platform, but Twitter hit the wall with two things recently. We talked about this in the show a while ago. One was the beheading videos, and two was the naked celebrity photos that have been stolen. And Twitter decided, basically for the first time really, to say, okay, that's going too far. We are making an editorial judgment to take that down on our own without request. That's their right to do.
But look, Google does not take down videos that criticize Turkey from YouTube because there's a law in Turkey against criticizing Turkishness.
Well,
no, they don't.
Matthew, because
and they get blocked from Turkey because they make a choice to leave that content up.
Because YouTube is blocked in Turkey, and they've chosen to go that way.
Right. So I'm saying at some point, a company has to decide whether they are just going to roll over for every government request or whether there are things they are not going to do when asked by government.
Exactly. Right. Okay. We agree there. Yes. And so Google thus got out of China. Right. But are you suggesting that every company should pull out of every country where the government demands they do something they can't do?
Yeah.
That's well. Okay. Yeah. That's the you know what you have doctrine.
I think you have to punish these countries for having that kind of reactionary point of view. And if these companies did, the countries would soon turn around, I think.
Yeah.
Well, given the right to be forgotten, then Google should pull out of Europe.
I agree. Look what Google did in Spain.
YouTube a number of times, so they'll punish them and block them, and then they put them back on again. I just think if Facebook has principles, which it sounds like they do, then they should stick to them. instead of bending over for every government that asks them to take something down.
Listen,
I agree.
I sympathize with your view.
Yeah, as do I.
They fight, but it's not as simple as that.
Well, I'll tell you why it's not. They're publicly held. They're publicly held companies, and they have a fiduciary right to their stakeholders to maximize profits. And it's hard in that environment to take a principled stand. I think if it's a privately held company, they should do it. But as soon as
I don't want to go down a rat hole here, but someone recently pointed out to me that companies do not actually have a legal fiduciary duty to maximize profits.
They don't?
No. There is
not a legal duty, but the shareholders can punish them.
Shareholders can punish
throw everybody out.
But they don't have
they
a
can
legal.
Punish them in the market and in the courts.
Of course, any company, public or not, has the right to lose money and run a crappy business.
I'd also like to
always
point out
protected from that.
Mark Zuckerberg controls the majority of the votes.
True.
Voting shares in Facebook and
so he faced no risk.
He can do whatever he wants.
He faced no risk.
What are you saying Zuckerberg should do? Be specific. Should Facebook pull out of 20 countries? Should they pull out of every country that doesn't have a First Amendment?
I would like to see Facebook put up a bit more of a fight. That's what I would like to see.
You think Twitter is a good model for this?
Twitter puts up a fight.
Twitter is a better model, but I think you're presuming that Facebook doesn't fight. Facebook also has a transparency report. Google has a transparency report. They all fight. Twitter does more and more cleverly, but Twitter does other things that are odd. But I think Twitter is a model. I'll agree with that.
Some of the fighting from some of the companies looks like window dressing.
Facebook does not say in its transparency report, I don't think, specifically what the complaint is or what content it involves.
They can't.
It just says
they're not allowed
yes, they
to.
Can. Sure,
no,
they
can't. Look,
Twitter
at Google's doesn't either. Google's is only allowed to say that they get between 1 and 900 requests from government, and that was after fighting.
Twitter will tell you what the order was what it related to, and where it came from.
Not in a lot of cases. They cannot, Matthew. They'd be jailed. They can't.
They can't in cases where the U.S. government has asked them for data.
Right. If it's a national security letter, they have to shut up.
But if the Turkish government files a court order saying take down that thing because it makes fun of Kemal Ataturk, they can certainly say that, and they don't.
So, and by the way, Amir Efrati, who works at the information, has such great contacts at Google. He's often breaking scoops. Google plans to shake up the U.S. wireless market, he writes, by selling voice plans to consumers directly from Google through T-Mobile and Sprint. So I guess to become an MVNO.
Yep.
It's the latest example of how Google tries to prod incumbents to change their business to benefit Google. That's what they do with Google Fiber. Show you that it's possible to have a gigabit ISP and make money on it. Google's expected to reach deals to buy wholesale access to the carrier's mobile voice and data networks. It's codenamed Nova. Nick Fox is leading it, a longtime Google executive. And Amir says a launch this year seems likely.
It makes sense in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm kind of surprised they haven't tried it before now.
Disney's an MVNO. I mean, Virgin. I mean, there's so many MVNOs. It's an easy thing to do. One of our advertisers, Ting, is a Sprint MVNO. It's an easy thing to do.
Well, I think there's a timing issue here because they couldn't, at the point when they were trying to launch Android across all carriers, they couldn't do this. Now, where the carriers aren't going to drop Android, they can do this.
Yeah, good point.
It's interesting that Sprint and T-Mobile are
with these carriers already, right?
Explain to me why Sprint and T-Mobile are willing to have these third parties lease wholesale data and sell below their retail prices, offer better plans.
I think both of them are struggling.
I guess they need to, huh?
But it feels like,
So there's a fixed cost and a variable cost. So the fixed cost is maintaining the network and growing it, and they want to keep doing that. And then there's a variable cost, which is running all the stores and signing people up and recruiting them and so on. And so if they can offload some of that variable cost stuff to somebody else, they're happy to do that because it helps them with the fixed cost. That's basically how MVNO stuff works. The other thing is that the reason it's those two is that they're the GSM ones. So they're the ones that it's actually straightforward to interoperate with, as opposed to Verizon, which is weird as anything, and AT&T, which is not quite as weird but still slightly odd.
Right.
Whereas GSM is like the global standard. You know, the reason you can pull SIMs out of phones and put different ones in, have them work broadly, is that they use GSM. And yeah, there are different bands, and you have to have different radio frequencies, and it's actually slightly more complicated.
Sprint's
than that.
not, though. Sprint's a CDMA carrier, so they would have one GSM and one CDMA carrier.
Oh, so I thought Sprint was okay. Then I'm
No,
wrong.
that's what's interesting about this is it's both.
Okay.
And I think that's probably why it is both, because I think they want to be able to say whatever kind of phone you have, you can bring it over.
That makes some sense, yeah.
The risk, I mean, as Amir mentioned, Sprint and T-Mobile, their networks are not as robust. Yeah. They don't have as good coverage.
They're the also-ran. That's why they're willing to do it.
Exactly.
The reason that Google has held back on this, Amir writes, is because they didn't want to upset wireless carriers. They needed them to carry Android phones. Now it's not such a big deal because
I just said that.
You just said that? Sorry.
I just said that.
And the other, but okay, then I'll add did you say this? The other reason is antitrust.
Okay.
I think if Google were to come along and say, why don't we just buy T-Mobile? They could do that. Mm-hmm. But the likelihood of government approval, I don't know, might be an unknown. So this is a great way to do it. And they can, and as you point out, cleverly, in advance of my insight, that now they don't have to worry about pissing off the other guy. You just said it so eloquently, I didn't understand you. They didn't want to piss off the other guys. I think I'd be tempted. It wouldn't even have to be less expensive if I thought Google was going to deal with me more fairly and have better customer service. But Google's not exactly known for customer service, are they?
No.
Right. But, well, it's a trade-off, right? So I had a problem with, I use T-Mobile because I think they're actually their deals are pretty good and their service is good. But I had a problem last week where my phone stopped working on Wednesday. Just I was getting on the train to San Francisco. And so when I got to San Francisco on Wi-Fi, I was like tweeting them saying, "Oi, my phone stopped working. What's up with this?" And they're like, "Oh, try turning it off and on again." It's like, yes.
Yeah. What else?
I've also tried taking the SIM out and putting it back in again. Yeah. You know, it is not a physical flaw; it's a network flaw. And then after doing that with the customer service guy, I said, "Okay, yeah, you're right. I'm gonna have to transfer this to engineering. They'll get back to you within 72 hours." Ah! And I was like, and I wasn't actually going to San Francisco for the rest of the week, so I let it sit for 72 hours. But that got me to Saturday, and Saturday was like, they still haven't fixed this, and they haven't responded to me any further with updates. So I went to the shop and said, "Okay, give me a new SIM now, please." And they gave me, and that straightforward. They gave me a new SIM, and then it worked. So clearly, it was not necessarily the SIM, but the network's knowledge of the SIM.
Right.
But it's like, you should have told me to go to the shop. You have retail shops for this exact purpose. Why did you tell me to wait 72 hours for engineering to look at it? So it's one of those like, yeah. But the thing is, Google doesn't have retail shops. So if that happened to me with Google, they would have to mail me one.
Erica G in our chat room says she has Google Fiber and the service is excellent on Google Fiber. So Google has figured out in a consumer-facing business, at least, how to do it right. Presumably that would apply to an MVNO.
And I wonder whether, would they be prepared to help Sprint and T-Mobile with their networks? I mean, if Google has lots of people who understand networks, lots of people they've got tons of fiber, maybe they can actually help improve those services.
Intriguing.
And then buy them.
Well, I think that's got to be the ultimate goal is how can we just buy them?
The head of Deutsche Telekom was flying a kite about selling T-Mobile this week as well, wasn't he?
Yeah.
So
they've been trying to sell that for ages. Remember SoftBank was going to, or was that Sprint?
Yeah.
Wasn't SoftBank going to buy them? And then their Sprint T-Mobile merger. But historically, the U.S. government has not looked too kindly on these things. They don't care if Comcast and Time Warner merge. That's fine. Apparently, telco lobbyists are not as effective.
But Google buying T-Mobile would be less of an issue because it wouldn't reduce competition.
They're not in the same business. Yeah, they're not in the same business.
I mean, it would create vertical integration, which is another kind of problem. But that's they're less worried about these days, I think.
I'd be all for it. According to Greenbot, Cyanogen wants to take Android away from Google. We do a better job. Let us maintain Android. Kurt McMaster wants to build Cyanogen, which, so the history of Cyanogen is kind of interesting. It was originally a custom ROM that people would, root their Android phones and put Cyanogen on there. And it was, basically an AOSP version of Android that you would then I don't know, quasi-legally download all the Google apps and make it a Google phone. Sorry, Google, I wasn't talking to you.
Oh, do you need something? I'm here.
Google,
I'm ready.
Google?
What?
What's up, boss?
Don't get it wrong. Don't get it wrong, Leo. We're all right. It's all
Okay.
good.
Do you want me to look up something about cyanogen? I can do that, you know.
Can I
I'm right
flip
here.
something For you? Oh, let's go for a walk. Okay?
McMaster, and I think putting it on 1+1 gave it some real credibility, because now it is the official operating system on at least one high-end Android phone. And frankly, those of us who used it, Gina was always very complimentary. I know you were too. Really liked it. So Kirk McMaster is saying he hopes to build CM into a full-fledged Android rival. He wants its own app store, a more open structure.
Makes no sense to me. No sense. You're going to fight against another app store. Developers have to build for another app store.
Well, that's true, but I do agree with him when he says that Android is really becoming a commercial product favoring Google services. And while there is AOSP, AOSP is the open source Android minus Google stuff, and no sane phone manufacturer is going to do that. Amazon is the best example of somebody who took AOSP and forked it and did without Google.
Leo, the whole reason I use
agree.
Android is because it is integrated with Google Plus and Google Mail. I mean, with Gmail and Google Maps and so on. That's exactly the selling point.
Yeah,
I think. But for you, if you were, if you were in a developing country where you just wanted a cheap phone that worked pretty much as the way the iPhone does, but didn't come with that price tag, then you might not care that it has to work with Google.
Cops don't like Waze. They say this could be dangerous that Waze tells you there's a police officer on the road.
Big bad Google again.
They call it a stalking feature, and
which is ridiculous.
I doubt cop killers use Waze, but maybe anyway. They're campaigning to pressure Google to turn off, because Google owns Waze now, the feature that warns drivers when police are nearby. It could put lives in danger.
Basic lesson is you can't control information anymore, guys. We'll find some way to know where you are.
That information gets there because other Waze users spotted a police officer. And usually the reason for it is because it's a speed trap, or, they just want to let you know you should drive more carefully because they're a police
Or it's also an indication that there's been an accident or something. There's a cop there for
you have
some
a
reason.
button for accident, too. I mean,
you do, yes.
Yeah, my experience is this is more like, hey, slow down.
But Google's answer was, the more people think there are cops all over, the slower they're going to drive. That's actually better.
Yeah. Julie Mossler, speaking for Waze, says Waze does work with the New York Police Department and others around the world by sharing information. These relationships keep citizens safe, promote faster emergency response, and help alleviate traffic congestion.
I mean, it's hard because, whenever they do a DUI checkpoint, they're required by law to tell you they're going to be there.
They have to announce there's a DUI
They have
checkpoint.
to pre-announce where they're going to be.
Wow.
You have to know.
Really?
So,
That seems, why is that?
Because people have a right not to, I guess, get into a search area. But I don't know why it is, and maybe it's just a California law, but they have to announce them in advance. Also, when you come up to a checkpoint, you have to have the ability to turn away from that checkpoint if you don't want to go through it.
No,
Really?
You're kidding.
Yeah,
Not my
I think
neck
I
of
did
the
a story
woods.
I think I did a story on checkpoints once.
Not in my neck of the woods. Out here, they block all the turns.
And then they're probably violating the law. And if you actually got a ticket, well, first of all, if you got a ticket, I'd probably hope that you did. But sorry, but no, you're supposed to be able to turn off. And that's part of the way the law works. But
this is not the first time. 4 U.S. senators in 2011 asked Apple to remove all applications that alert users to drunk driving checkpoints. Nokia removed the sobriety check tracking function in one of their apps. Trapster was eventually discontinued at the end of the year, but the founder says it was because Waze did so much of a better job. I understand police would be nervous about this.
But, if you were going to, you can totally understand it, especially what happened in New York. And, my first initial reaction when I saw that was like, wow, yeah, that is scary. And then if you think a bit more, it's like, it is not difficult for you to figure out where police are without having to, you know, if you're going to go out trying to find a police officer, you probably don't need to rely on Waze to figure out how to do it. But
the truth is, people don't just have guys who are on patrol in there. The truth is, they're putting up speed traps.
Right.
And God help me again, Google has a point that you end up slowing down. The cops don't get to zap as many people, but if people are actually going slower, it's better.
Well, when we get the auto driving cars, it won't matter because then nobody will be speeding. It'll all be good.
And they'll report on all your movements, and then we'll have a privacy crisis, and that'll be the world.
Google has added a virtual Genius bar. Have you seen this?
I think Genius bar is trademarked, surely.
Yeah. They're actually using help-outs. It's called Google Device Experts.
It's kind of like Mayday from Google,
yeah.
right? Mm-hmm.
So employees involved with the service told TechCrunch it's been in testing since November. Google spokesperson said, we're in a limited trial of an experimental support feature gathering feedback, not yet ready to share
Is this the thing we
plans.
called that day on the show?
No, it's different.
This is in the devices section of Google Play. So you're on the web, you're in Google Play in the devices section, click the help icon top right corner, and then under contact us, there will appear a video call button, and that will give you a Google Hangouts with a Google expert who can help you.
So we can't call anybody now?
Well, I can try it. They say you can share your screen, so this is very much like Mayday, isn't it? So let's go to play.google.com and see what we can do. I don't think it's rolled out yet. I think it's just something they've spotted. Yeah. So there's devices. Here's help. Is video call?
Video call. Yep.
How can we help you? What do I need? Can
broke my Nexus 6.
I use? Yeah. No. Can I use
Skype on Chrome OS?
Skype on Chrome OS? Question mark. Start a video call. Wow.
Sorry, I didn't
this
mean
is
to
going to
troll.
be good.
I'm not trying to troll them, but why not?
Yeah.
You're the first one here, ready to join. Now, I think, would you like to share your screen? We have to kind of tell, somehow, don't show this. We have to tell them we're doing this before we actually do it, somehow. Share my screen. Google Hangouts is sharing your screen with plus.google.com. You are screen sharing, present to everyone, but I'm not, they hear my audio, but no one is coming in the room.
Oh. They're getting something out of the microwave.
Oh. Hey, how you doing? Can I'm on a, don't play his audio yet. I'm on a podcast called This Week in Google. My name's Leo, and I'm wondering if I can show people, because we're showing people this new feature, if I can show people your screen and we can record your voice. But Doug, before I can show this, I need your permission to record it.
Yeah, go for it, Leo.
Go for it, Leo.
Hey.
All right. Thank you, Doug. Yay. So everybody's going to see you now. Yes, and I have nothing confidential on my screen, so go ahead and look at it.
Well, thank you for sharing your screen. But yeah, I saw that you had a question about using Skype on Chrome OS.
Yeah, can I?
So currently, Skype is currently not supported on Chrome OS. There are, however, great alternatives for video chatting on Chrome or on Chromebooks as well as communication apps that are available on the Chrome Web Store, including Hangouts. Are you familiar with Hangouts?
I am. We love Hangouts. In fact, this is Helpouts, isn't it? Isn't that what we're using right now?
We're on a Hangout right now. I know Hangouts is kind of similar to Hangouts, but we're actually just straight up on
This
Hangouts
is just plain old Hangout. And yeah. Doug, are you are you a Google employee or are you a third party or?
Yeah, I work at Google. We're here in beautiful Mountain View.
You're in Mountain View. Oh, I love your set. That looks so cool with the Android stuff there.
You know, we are very googly here at Google.
I know. How many of do you know how many of you are there doing this?
I know we do have a small team. I wouldn't be able to put a number to it though. I'm really bad at math and counting.
That's okay. But there are other people and you're all kind of near each other doing this?
Yeah, kind of. I'm not too sure how big the team is, but I do have my own team here, and we are all kind of our team of device experts.
Now, were you a Google employee before this, or were you hired specifically to do this kind of support?
Actually, because you are kind of our press, we do kind of.
You can't talk to me. I understand. Doug,
I do have a link for you if you like. It's press@google.com.
Yeah, I'm familiar with that, and I apologize for ambushing you, but that's why we asked you.
No, I'm definitely here. If I can, help spread the word or kind of.
Well, you are.
That's what we're doing. That's exactly what we're doing.
Yeah, lots of people now are going to try this out, and I love, Doug, how you shared that link with me, and I could just. It was in a little window down here, and I could just click that to go to press.google.com. That was cool. Yeah. Well, hey, this is really neat.
Hey, Doug, you're great. You want to be a
really
co-host of This Week in Google?
Yeah, we could hire you as a host of This Week in Google. We got to replace Gina here. Hey, it's very nice to meet you, Doug. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It was really great talking to you, Leo.
All right. It's a great demo of what you guys can do.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Take care.
If you ever need help, go ahead and shoot us another hangout.
I will. I love it. Just another. Bye, Doug.
Bye, Doug.
Bye, Doug.
Bye.
That is so cool.
That is
He was a good
great.
sport.
He was really a good sport.
That never gets old. Calling Google support on this show never gets old.
No.
I know you did it first on All About Android.
No, but I think it's great. I think it's awesome. And I would imagine you guys are pretty darn impressed as I am, because for the longest time, Google and support have not been two words that have been associated with good. Yet both of these times that we've done it on this show, the response has been super quick. They've, I'm sure if we would have dove in with a pretty hardcore question, probably would have got a good answer. I'm pretty impressed.
And by the way, he did not refer to a notebook or anything, at least not that I could see. He knew the answer.
Yeah, he wasn't doing page 78.
Yeah, let me go to,
Yeah.
So you do that by going to the Play Store and clicking the question mark icon, and then under Contact Us, there's a video call. At least there was on mine. There's also live chat and phone, and that is impressive for people who have in the past said, "Oh, I don't know, I can't get support from Google." Now they don't do this for Gmail and stuff like this. Although he did answer a question about Chrome OS.
He did.
Wow, that is
a Chromebook.
sweet.
I guess that's.
Well, they sell Chromebooks here, so but they sell products here that cover the entire spectrum of Google stuff.
Now, if I'd been obnoxious, I could have asked whether there's any possible use for my Google Glass.
Wouldn't that be interesting? Because Glass is still available in the store, and
no, it's not. You can't buy. I think they
can't buy it. They just have it there.
I don't think you can buy it.
But I think they would still support it if you ask. So speaking of right time, timing is everything if you're selling shares of your company. Larry Page and Sergey Brin have decided to, according to a filing with the SEC, sell off some shares. So that's nice. As of January 30th of this year, they had a total of 44.6 million shares of Class B and 44.6 million shares of Class C stock. They're going to sell 2 million each of the Class B common stock. And, of course, only Google founders and Googlers can have Class B, so it'll convert to Class A upon sale. And then another 2 million shares each of the non-voting Class C, which I presume will also convert, for a total of $4.4 billion. Wow. But they're only selling 10% of their holding.
Right. I mean, they're still the major controllers of the company. It doesn't, it's...
Yeah. Well, they'll own 11.9%. But they have 52% of the voting power. They really, when Google went public, this was considered at the time. They did some really interesting things when they went public, including was a Dutch auction they did. But they also made sure that they kept a lot of the voting power. So
and the split aimed even more control, as I remember, right?
Yes,
when they did the split.
That's right. They converted some shares. So 52% of the voting power. Nobody's going to change the plans at Google anytime soon. Class B shares, mostly owned by Brin Page and Eric Schmidt, have 10 times the voting power. I love this picture. This is from Business Insider. That's Larry. That's 2006. They're a little older and grayer than that picture. But I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I don't think anybody in the stockholders should worry that they're selling. It's 10%. Cash in a little stock. I wish I could cash in $4.4 billion worth of something. Wonder what they'll do with it.
It leads to things like philanthropy and estate planning and probably buying another plane or something, investing.
Gets to be a point, though, where you have so much money that you don't even really It's absurd.
It's got to be a different world where you don't even have to. I mean, I can't even imagine. It's just a different world. There is a burden, though, and I don't know how philanthropic are they, and how philanthropic is Google. There is a point where it gets to be so much that you really should give some away.
Google does a fair amount.
Yeah.
Do they?
Yeah. Google.org. Don't forget they pledged a portion of equity, portion of revenue. Benioff is the leader of that in San Francisco of pushing companies to pledge portions of revenue and portions of revenue, portions of equity, and portions of employee time.
Each year, Google.org donates $100 million in grants, $1 billion in products, and 80,000 hours in Googler time. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
But do Larry and Sergey have their own? Is there a Page Foundation or a?
I think one of them does related to health stuff.
That's right.
I think it's Larry.
That would be Larry, right? Yeah.
Larry,
I think so.
Yeah.
The other thing is, there's nothing to say that they have to be public about it.
Right.
And you don't know what they give.
In fact, I think that's the way to do it. The left hand should not know what the right hand is.
But I was thinking about that. I was almost going to call into the Stern show for some reason. I forget what the peg was, and ask Howard, because he's very public about his wife's charity, which is the Long Island animal shelter that she's building for cage-free cats. So he does stuff. He does a calendar. He takes the photos, so on and so forth. You know that he does other philanthropy. He mentions it very discreetly.
Good.
But doesn't talk about it. But I was wondering about this, and I wanted to ask him. And I guess I understand why. It's a matter of humility, but it also is an opportunity to promote a cause or a charity that you care about. And by not saying I give to blank, then you give up that opportunity. I understand why you don't, both from let's not trumpet my charity, says rich person, and also because once I mention one charity, they're all going to come running, like universities, like this one.
Well, you'd also want to be a role model, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Right, but I think part of why you don't disclose is because it could look like you give preference to certain groups over others.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Wouldn't the right kind of disclosure be something like, I give 10% of all my income to charity, period. And then choose the charity of your choice, and but do this all comes from this perception, and I don't know if it's real anymore, but for a long time there's this perception that Silicon Valley was minting millionaires, but they were not very progressive in their charitable contributions. I don't know if that's still the case.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know either, but if you're a millionaire and you have a really good accountant, an accountant is going to advise you.
Yeah, that's a good point.
To do that.
Actually, I should be, because I have an accountant, and the truth is that the federal government keeps raising the threshold of your AGI for what you could deduct. And so, in fact, they are not incenting giving as much as they should. They're disincenting it all the time. I can't remember what the threshold is now, but I think it's over. It was 4%. I think it's gone up.
Yeah.
And that's wrong. That means you have to give more than 4% of your income before you could start deducting it. That first 4% is taxable.
It's on you.
Yeah. Just the same thing they do with medical expenses. And that doesn't seem like the right way to promote philanthropy. I don't know if I should talk about this. It turns out that you can deduct from $1 if you do something called community development. So when we give, Twit gives a lot of my charities, all my charity almost is local. And that's one of the reasons, because then you can deduct it from $1 if it's called community development as opposed to charity. Anyway, there's ways and ways. That's why you have an account.
I have two major charities, Tufts University and the next one.
And the next one?
Oh, my daughter's.
Oh, the next university. Yeah, tell me about that.
Yeah.
Tell me that. I have two kids in college.
Yep.
That's a charity. Yeah, they're both nonprofits.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oy. All right, I got a new product for you. Just got the box.
Ooh.
I got a mysterious email from Motorola, a Lenovo company. Although, to my knowledge, there is no Snapfish on Motorola phones yet. But I got an email last week from a Motorola saying we'd like to send you a box. It's embargoed till 6 to 8 a.m. Pacific time, Wednesday the 25th, today. Your box will arrive, and I think their hope was that people would have live unboxings all over the internet. I wasn't going to rush in, so I came in at my normal time, and we opened up the box, and this is what we got. I think this is inspired. I wish more companies would do this. From a point of view of a tech journalist, what a wonderful thing. So I open up the box, and here's it says slide to start, fragile.
It'd be great if it had a timer on it that you really couldn't open up at a certain time.
Do not open. Wouldn't that be great? Well, it arrived. Based on when it arrived, I guess that wasn't an issue because I couldn't open it till it arrived. So you slide it open. Actually, I'm sure it came out this way, and it said the new Moto E. So this is the second generation of Motorola's really inexpensive phone. List price $150, and it was kind of cool. It says start here, so you open the flap, and that actually in here were these.
Put your hand in and something will bite it off.
I know. And here were these bumpers. This is one way you can customize it. They have a variety of colored bumpers. And then you flip this open. I thought this was really cool. Here's the welcome desk. Oh, you also had a badge with my name on it. It said Motorola. And so I already got my badge. Thank you at the welcome desk. And there's that's so cool. There's a door. And then you pull open the door, and there's little seats for you and the other press to sit in. And there's what's his name?
Rick Osterloh.
Rick Osterloh. Hey, Rick. He's a little Rick. And there was a phone in here, which I've since taken out. But that is so cute. Thank you, Motorola.
And the phone was getting very good notices today that they've done a lot at a low price. Yes.
This is remarkable given. Now, somebody said it was for sale. Actually, let me unlock it because I
think Best Buy might have leaked the price and information last week.
Somebody said it was for sale $120, but I
think that's for the 3G. That's for the 3G.
Okay, so this is the new. This is the new one, full 4G. It's a small screen. It's a QHD screen, which is what 960 by 540, 245 pixels per inch, which is small but not tiny. Now it's only 8 gigs of storage. In fact, the first thing I had to do was take apps off because of course it immediately auto installs everything, and once you take apps off. But it's a good looking screen. It feels fairly snappy. It has OK Google, the standard OK Google. It doesn't have a lot of the Moto stuff, but it does have the watch while you're driving. It will
Moto Assist.
The Moto Assist. Yeah, I really I love that. It's supposed. Now I don't know anything about battery life yet because I just got it, but it's a fairly hefty battery for something this size. It says meeting, have a productive meeting. So it won't ring now because I'm in a meeting, which is awesome. And it's Lollipop, and not only Lollipop, but clean Lollipop. It is effectively Google version.
Is there any Moto Wear on it at all?
There's just the Moto apps that are needed to do assist. And I think it probably has the Connect app, which or migration app, which allows you, to migrate stuff over.
It's like a mini Nexus. I mean, it's pure Google.
It's pure Google. So, in fact, for people who want a really cheap Nexus for development, this is a great choice. They're saying in the press kit, they say it's for first-time phone, buyers. It's for kids. This comes off, and you can customize it. There's a black version also, and a variety of different colored these little colored things. Oh, this is something nice. Even though only 8 gig storage, it does support an SD card, a micro SD card, up to 32 gigs on that. Huh?
Why don't more phones do that?
I think that's such a nice feature. It's hard to do in the OS, but I think Google's figured it out now. So if you wanted to store, it would be more for music, not so much to give you more app storage. So now I've made it a pink phone because I like pink. I think this is for a first phone. It's also third world oriented. There will be a dual SIM model, and there is an FM radio in it. I think that's something that developing nation, I think that's something developing nations want. But for anybody who wants a cheap unlocked phone,
I mean, you think about it. Just remember back to our wonder of smartphones and what this cost is $129 for a phenomenal phone, and also compare it to the prices being rumored for the new Samsung.
Over $1,000, $1,100.
Over $1,000, yeah.
Unbelievable.
I give Moto a lot of credit here. I mean, they came out with this Moto E last year. I got one sitting here as well.
Great little disposable phone.
Absolutely. Great backup phone. They
you have
added
a purple
front
thing on yours.
Yeah, I put the purple band on there. My little Rick Osterloh, he won't stand up. I don't know what happened to him, but he fell down. But they added a front-facing camera, which last year's model did not have.
Yeah, 5 megapixels front and back.
No flash on the back, which is a little unfortunate, but that's okay. You mentioned the Moto Assist. It also has the some of the notification stuff that the Moto X has.
Yes.
You can't put your hand over it and have notifications appear. There's no sensors for that. But if you nudge the phone when it's sitting down and the screen is off, the screen will actually wake and show you your notifications. So they're doing what they can with this, with very limited hardware. I mean, this is up to a quad-core chip as compared to last year's dual-core chip inside.
It's a Snapdragon 400, 410, something like that. It's not super,
yeah, it's not going to set the house on fire.
Yeah.
Last year's model actually only had 4 gig of storage, so the 8 gig is actually a doubling. It really, I mean, it's almost the same price as last year, plus it has LTE.
I think this is remarkable. I think that for a kid, it's also, it feels indestructible. Yeah. Gorilla Glass, very plasticky, but boy, you feel, and also somewhat water resistant. I feel like this is the kind of phone that somebody would give a kid, or your first phone if you're in a budget constrained. Yeah, kudos to Motorola. I think this is really pretty impressive. Kevin, this is probably coming out of Chicago, not out of China. I mean, the design and the sensibility and all of that.
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, if you look at it, you can see on the band that I have, I mean, it looks like the Moto X design, which really originated back here.
So you got the dimple.
Yeah, I mean, it's the dimple and everything. It's just a reuse of a very smart, elegant design, and it's a little bit of a chunky monkey because of that battery. But they say 24 hours of battery life to be expected.
See, that's remarkable. I actually cast my Moto X aside in 2014 Moto X because I couldn't get through a day as much as I love it, and I had the leather back and everything. But, if I can get all the features and it lasts a day, this thing's compact. This isn't a bad choice at all.
You could actually buy one of these outright for $149, never put a SIM card in it, just use it as a Wi-Fi Android iPod for,
Right.
Yeah.
Unlocked. The unlocked, unsubsidized price.
Well, then $129 because you don't need the 4G.
Right.
Good
point.
That's
a good point, yeah.
Why did they release this before?
Because there's going to be a lot of noise from Barcelona starting on Saturday. And the best way to avoid that is to do exactly what they did, which is send this clever little box with a mini Rick Osterloh in it. And by doing that, they got our attention, didn't they? Hi, Rick. Yours is like falling over.
Yeah, there's glue on the bottom, but my glue never sets. So Rick, I'm going to put him on my desk somewhere, I think.
I like the mini Rick. I really like Rick, and I really think. I hope Lenovo doesn't screw this company up as they have screwed IBM's ThinkPad. Nice job. We got our little press kit.
Is the ThinkPad bad? I mean, I know they
ThinkPad does not have Superfish. It does not have Superfish. So it was only on the cheap consumer grade products that it has all that. So yeah, here's some masking tape in here. They obviously
Rick Osterloh even has a back.
Oh,
I mean, they went all out.
Oh my God, they spared no extra.
Really?
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Buy my phones.
Holy cow.
This changes everything.
This changes everything.
I love how this is kind of like thumbing their nose at the big, kind of what's become a tradition now, which is just that in order to get attention, they feel like, these companies feel like they need to throw these huge announcements filled with, glamour and Broadway music and all this stuff, when really all you need is a clever kind of campaign that's sent out at the right time, which in this case ends up being before Barcelona, and they're going to get a pretty decent amount of awareness and coverage out of it.
Yeah, you know what else about that is that if you go to, for the sake of twit, I've gone to the big Samsung event at Radio City.
Oh God.
Right, where number one, it was an awful event. Number two, they don't give away any phones.
Yeah.
Number three, I'll bet it cost 5 times what just giving away the phone and the cute box cost.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And I think they sent a lot of these to bloggers and people who probably can't afford to go to Barcelona. They don't want to go to Barcelona, so you get more attention by doing that. Yeah, it's smart. The Moto X announcement last year was in Chicago.
I think you need him on your shoulder, Leo.
I can do that.
You can speak in your voice, in your ear. Is he the good angel or the bad angel?
Yes. That's a good question. He's hanging on for dear life, I can tell you that. By the way, the Samsung phone, the S6, has a new form of payment. Remember, they bought Loop Pay. That's kind of an interesting technology. Jeff Needles uses it. It allows you to hover your phone over a swipe terminal. The phone sends out a magnetic field, which is read as a real credit card being swiped. So, in other words, Samsung's Pay will have touch to pay, but also this swipe capability, which will make it the most compatible.
That's going to work far better, I think, in Europe than here. I mean, in Europe,
I don't think do they swipe still in Europe?
Well,
yeah.
No, you do the chip card.
I thought they did chip and pin. Yeah,
but I think those terminals, when they come in a restaurant in Europe,
they do.
You pay at the table with the device.
The swiper.
Well, it's PIN, but I think they also have a swipe there, and I don't imagine you can hold it up against that. But in the U.S., there's a hell of a lot of purchases for which this won't matter.
Well, swiping is going away, I think.
Yeah.
How are you going to pay for a restaurant check? I mean, how are you going to do with those kinds of things?
Well, they just get these new touch terminals everywhere.
Yeah, well, that's a big deal. Every restaurant, every waiter in the country.
They're mandated to. I think they're mandated to. This is all changing.
Is it that definite?
So we're moving to chip and sign
instead of chip and pin
by October of this year. No more swipe. So there'll be a chip, but it won't be necessarily pin-based. You'll still maybe sign. So that sounds like the waiter will, if he comes to your table, will have a thing that you touch your. I'm getting a new American Express card. It's on its way with a chip in it. I think all your credit cards will be replaced in the next few months with chips. That's, I think, NFC, right? You tap it and then it registers it. You still may have to print out a receipt and sign it, although it's not it doesn't mean you can't do chip and pin. It just means that they're giving them a little more time to get used to that notion. So chip and sign, though, is by October. And it may be chip and pin in many of the places you go. Well, so that's to fight fraud, although we'll see how well that fights fraud.
Yeah.
But that's why everybody and their brother is announcing these new payment systems, Samsung and Apple and everybody else, because Walmart, because they realize that all of the terminals are going to be refreshed in the next 6 months.
Right. This is a huge opportunity.
Real opportunity.
Everyone's trying to take advantage of it. Absolutely.
Android Pay even exists. Sundar Pichai talked about Android Pay to replace Google Wallet, which
no, to tie in with Google Wallet.
Okay.
Yeah, it's because that would get really confusing, and which actually wouldn't be too surprising knowing Google. But yeah, it's more like APIs for developers to allow developers to kind of tie mobile payments like this
so they're
into
not
their apps. And
deprecate
services.
the wallet. I'll still be able to use my wallet.
Right.
So it will provide a secure store. It will have an API. Apps will determine when and where you can use payment cards. The Google system will tokenize card numbers, much like Apple and Samsung Pay do. That's one of the real advantages of these payment systems from the privacy point of view and a security point of view. You're not giving the merchant your credit card or any personal information, merely a one-time token, which they can use to verify that you are paying this amount. Google's Android Pay will use NFC for transmission, will support biometric authentication via hardware. Oh, that's another thing on the S6. They've figured out a way to do touch without swiping, Touch ID, fingerprint. Right now, although I have to say, I've gotten used to the Note 4, and I'm pretty consistent on it. But see, I just did it, and it said, no, you didn't. You did it a little sideways. You have to do it just right. I do like this, and it does unlock Google Wallet. It unlocks LastPass. So there already is a standard kind of API for the Samsung fingerprint reader, but one that works like Apple's, where you just put your finger on it
and it reads it and you're done.
Apple's works so well.
Yep.
But you know what, Leo? You know what I don't want on my Nexus 6? A button.
Right. Well, as a result, you have a physical button, and this is why the Apple iPhone has a physical button. And it's why Samsung. It justifies Samsung's continued devotion to the home button.
Right.
Maybe they knew. So Pichai said that they're not trying to compete with Samsung's offering. It's just to give them another choice. And I guess it will work with the Samsung fingerprint reader, which is cool. No timeline. I guess we'll find out more at Google I/O in May.
I am glad that they're stepping this up a little bit. I mean, for a while it was unsure. I was unsure, certainly. I think a lot of people were, what was going to happen with Google Wallet? You know, was it just going to go away? I mean, I was really starting to wonder because I use Google Wallet whenever I can because it's more secure. People ask me, why do you do that thing with your phone? Why don't you pay by credit card? And I tell them, there's a PIN. You know, I can revoke things very easily if someone gets my phone or something. But I've been going to stores and it hasn't been working because stores are I guess not subscribing to the service anymore or whatever. So I was getting really worried, but I'm really glad that they're stepping this up. I'm glad that they bought ISIS or whatever it's called now. Soft card, thank you. Because I think that the reason they did it was just because they got so worried with Apple Pay. I think that kind of forced Google
worried, or they saw an opportunity. I mean, I think that just as we said, this is the time. If you're going to put your flag in the sand, this is the time to plant it.
Yep.
Wallet was hurt because the carriers, chiefly Verizon, wanted to use SoftCard,
right,
and said, "Well, we're not going to let you use Apple." I mean, how many times have I installed Google Wallet or tried to on an Android device and it says your carrier does not support it?
Yeah.
But that changed at some point. Now everybody does, right? Have you had problems on Verizon with your?
Well, I have
Google
not had
Wallet?
problems, but I run a custom ROM, so
you wouldn't even know.
I wouldn't
if you
know. Yeah.
Google actually specifically took it into their own hands and changed the way Wallet authenticates.
They fixed it.
The secure element, something along those lines. The details are a little shady, but they basically went around the carriers and said,
Good.
okay, well, if you're going to block it there, then we're going to do it this way.
Well,
now,
whatever happened, I was real thrilled because suddenly my wallet was working and I put all my credit cards in there.
Right.
As far as I can tell, it's functionally identical to Apple Pay. The only difference is the fingerprint reader. I think it's great. Use a PIN instead of a fingerprint reader.
And now that's coming.
And everywhere that uses Apple Pay, it works because Touch ID is Touch ID, you know, or whatever it is.
Yep.
Touch to Pay is Touch to Pay. So I'm not sure what's going on, and this is not good because consumers need to know with some reliability what's going on. Maybe that's why it almost feels like they've rebranded Google Wallet Android Pay in the same way they rebranded Google TV Android TV. Maybe
Google likes to rebrand its things.
Well, it's all Android, right?
Yeah. I think that's the more consumer-friendly brand.
Yeah.
Right.
Anyway, let's talk about, I have actually not one, but 2 new Chromebooks. And Jeff, time for me to eat crow.
Whoa. History book.
Yeah. Well, you remember I was pretty dismissive.
You've been nice. We made a shtick of it. But
I've been dismissive of the Chromebook. And a lot of people still are. They say, oh, it's just a browser pretending to be a computer. But a few things have happened. One is obvious. It's become more and more capable over time, and there's more and more Chrome extensions. There's now Chrome apps, which act pretty. In fact, Chrome OS has become, in many respects, a full-blown OS. You've got apps, you've got a toolbar and all that. But what was missing, I think, was decent hardware, to be frank. Most Chromebooks are $200 to $300. They're junky. They're netbooks. They're tinny.
Yeah.
So I now, having played with the new Google, let me log into this before you show it.
I have mine set up so Pixel. I can log in with my watch.
That is awesome. If you have Android 5 on your device, your watch will do it.
I mean my phone.
God, if the watch did it, that'd be really awesome. But if you have Android 5 on your smartphone, yeah, it'll just log in automatically. The screen is spectacular, as good as any Retina Air. It's weird, 3.2 still. In fact, it's in every way that's the same except Type-C connector now, which I really like. And there's 2 of them, so you could put power on either side, video on either side, USB still there. It still has an SD card slot, which is kind of a bad tease because I can't really do anything with it. I shoot RAW, so it doesn't. There's no point in putting a card in there. Although it does mount flush, which means you could use this as extra storage. You put a 128 gig SD card in there. That's like a second hard drive if you wish.
I tried to go to Best Buy and Apple to buy a C to HDMI connector, and you can't get them yet.
Not yet.
Really?
Not yet.
You can get it from Google, but you can't get it in the store.
Yeah, you get them online. And Apple sells a $79 dongle, which really is overpriced. So there's a couple of needed accessories. That's certainly one is cheap Type-C interfaces. And I'm sure Monoprice will do them because it's not proprietary. It's not the MagSafe adapter. It's everybody, Intel, Google, and Apple all involved in Type-C. It's a standard. So as far as I can tell, I've been doing a lot of inquiries. This is a standard. Power and everything. You could, for instance, have a Type-C power adapter from another manufacturer, plug it in, and it would work fine. Even if the wattage isn't the same, it will trickle charge it or fast charge it or not use all the power available. It'll work. The other accessory that's needed is Steve Gibson came up with this, and if anybody wants to steal this idea and do a Kickstarter, I encourage you. He says you need a Type-C condom because there is this issue that Type-C is not just power, it's full USB data. So the bad USB hack, which means that you can use this to modify the firmware on USB drives and make them very potent malware transportation devices, is a potential problem here. Somebody could put a charging station in a coffee shop that would infect. Now, the good news about Chromebooks is you can't. There's nothing really to infect.
In fact, right.
These are very, very secure. But nonetheless, and certainly for the MacBook, you'll want this. It would be simple enough to make a Type-C male to female cable that just carried the power lines, not any of the data.
I see.
And you'd carry that with you. You'd use that all the time. Then you could safely connect to anything. So that's a good market. And they shouldn't be more than $1 or $2. There's no special stuff in that.
I'm figuring $59 from Apple before you know it.
Yeah. By the way, it is March 18th today, Jason. Just not March 11th.
Good catch.
I am really impressed with the keyboard, the screen, the trackpad.
Yes.
Everything works very well.
The hinge is more solid. The hinge was good before, but it's really good now.
And you don't mind the screen that it's 3.2?
It's weird, but you get used to it. And
yeah, no, it's fine for me.
One thing that has really improved in the Chromebook is the ability to handle different size screens. And I'll use that with this. I'll use this as an example. This came out today. This is a new Acer Chromebook with a 15-inch screen. And one of the things that's made it hard for me to recommend Chromebooks to, it's the natural users of Chromebooks are older people, right, who really don't need anything more complex than a browser and email program things and stuff like that. Chromebooks are perfect for them. They just can't get in trouble with them. But the screens have been so crappy and small, it's hard to recommend it. Even I have a hard time reading it. Can you hide the screen real quickly while I log into my Google account on this? This one... I'll show you what I've done. I've made because you have 15 inches now, you can make this very easy to look at because you now have two things you can change. You can change the standard browser zoom size and you can change the standard text size.
So it's not the small type problem of the other HD Chromebook?
This is so easy to use. You see how big that... I can make it even bigger. You see how big it is? And on a 15-inch screen, which it's 1080p screen, potentially these could be very small, but they're actually quite usable, I think. So I think Google has solved a lot of the kind of little things.
And how much is that Acer?
$300.
Amazing.
So I've customized the fonts to be very large, but you can even go more in here. You can change the kind of font. There's a lot of information there. You can use to your heart's content to make it legible. And then you can set the standard page zoom, which I've set to 150% on here, just kind of as example. Now, some of the icons on the Chrome, the user interface, are still small, but usable. And it's not touch. It's not nearly as good a screen as the Pixel. The thing that's great about the Pixel is it feels so fast, so fluid, so easy. And this isn't even the LS version. That you kind of some of the kind of qualms about using a Chromebook go away. It feels like it's a real computer.
The speed is already impressive. I got the LS.
You did?
Oh, yeah.
Both? Okay, so the Acer
It was my only machine. I might as well, that's what I live with.
Right, so. Why not? $200, $300 more? The Acer boots in 7 seconds. This thing, let me just do a reboot. It feels like it's almost instant, right?
Well, what's so great too, you mentioned this last week too, is the setup is nothing. Every time I've changed machines, it was a day of doing this, I forgot that. And you turn it on and give it about 4 minutes and it's done.
Yeah. So let's see how fast it takes to boot. I just shut it off. Just tap 1001, 1002, 1003, 1004. Did I tap it?
No, it didn't shut off yet. It takes a second to shut off.
Okay. Is it off? How do you even know? No light on the front. 1001, 1002, 1003. I love the screen backup, 1000. That's it. Like almost instant, like 4 or 5 seconds.
Yeah.
This is kind of fun, too. The rainbow little doohickey here. You double tap it, and you can see how much battery life is left, which is great. So I'm 100% charged. And the battery life, you haven't experienced this yet, Jeff. 9 to 12 hours, easy.
Oh, really? So it's legit.
Oh, it's legit. And same thing with this Acer because it's so big. It's all battery in the inside.
Right.
That is fabulous.
These are heavier than Airs. That's the one thing. They're not skinny.
But it feels it feels like something. It's a utilitarian.
Yeah.
Air.
It's solid.
Square edges. It's very googly. I love it. I'm very happy with it. Wow. I think you're going to like yours a lot. I'm curious what you say with the ludicrous speed version.
There's nothing.
Go ahead, Matthew.
Sorry. There's nothing you want to do on a computer that you can't do on there?
Yeah, there's a few things. I like to do computer programming. I can't do most kinds of computer programming. You can do App Inventor and stuff like that, web-based programming, but I can't do the stuff I want.
When you could dual boot, you can dual boot to, not dual boot, but dual build to.
I played with Linux on this. I decided not to do that. The one thing I have done, I have SSH on here. And so the one thing I have done is I can SSH to my Linux box and have a Linux command line easily.
Right.
So,
no, Matthew, the only thing is you don't edit video on it.
Can't edit video or photo. I mean, you can, but
photo, you can. I mean, you don't do what Leo does with his raw files on photo. But for what I do, for let me get a photo for a Medium post, easy as pie.
You can also use remote desktop. So I'm going to remote desktop into my Mac Pro at home. And don't look. You have a security pin, which I've just entered. And now I can use my computer at home.
Is it 1, 2, 3, 4?
Yeah. Shoot, you saw. You saw. So I'm having some screen issues, but this is probably because I have my computer at home set at a ridiculous screen resolution. But basically, this is, that's my computer at home I'm looking at. This screen is my Mac Pro. So you can, in fact, I guess, do what you want. But I think if you had I think what you need is a desktop that can do all that stuff, and then this could be your notebook.
I mean, listen, I think when you get, if I had Google Fiber at full speed, you start to see doing video remotely.
Yeah. There is a remote video plug-in, video
exists.
plug. WeVideo will do video editing.
And listen, it's always taken time to download the video to the machine. You just upload it to the cloud instead, and as long as you can get response there, and the rendering is going to be faster up in the cloud than it is going to be on a local machine.
As more stuff uses HTML5, as Chrome gets more powerful, I love this little app drawer. And by the way, you get this on Windows and Mac now too, where you have as for all intents and purposes, this looks like the taskbar on Windows with all my icons here.
Wash your mouth out.
Well, I mean, the dock. You have a start button where you have, these are the apps I have. I can swipe through them, which is great. And these, it's pretty much everything I want. The speakers on this are pretty decent still. I think the old Pixel had very good speakers. These are still pretty good here.
And there is a lot of, image editing and even sort of minor video editing that you can do in the cloud.
Yeah.
And stuff like my TweetDeck app is great,
Anyway, you get...
Just assumed it would be all about the bass.
Oh, I can play that.
No, that's fine.
I hate that song. So I think in general, this is like 90% of what most people do with their computing anyway.
Yeah.
100% in some cases. You can play Pac-Man. If you just go to your maps.google.com, you can play Pac-Man in your hometown. I'm playing it in Petaluma. Uh-oh, quickly, before Blinky gets to me, run for the river, Pac-Man. Oh, I just went. I don't know where I am. Oh, yeah. You go off the edge. That's right.
Oh. It is kind of brilliant.
Isn't it? And listen to the sound. Turn up the sound.
I've got the sound up. I don't know why. I heard that.
That's not the sound you want. Why aren't I not? Sound is returned to good. Huh. Oh, here it is. That little thing. There we go.
Oh,
now,
let it in.
Now, how do you feel? Do you have to license that sound?
Yeah, sure they did. Yeah.
I mean, it's
Google.
It's exactly the sound. Namco licensed it.
Must have.
Well, it's like an AY38910 chip. It's one of the 4 things it can do. So.
Oh, yeah. You know what? That's probably a good point. It probably is built into the chip, isn't it? All right, Blinky. Come here, baby. I'm going to eat you alive. I was really bad at this game.
So can we play this on a map of London? That'd be much harder.
Yeah, just much harder. Sure. Let's go back to Google Maps. I think you can go anywhere.
I believe so.
Yeah, you know what would be really hard is one of these like suburban mazes where there's no actual.
Yeah, there's no out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Dead end.
Yeah,
You're done.
it works anywhere. So play Pac-Man. I think this is nicely done.
Yeah.
I mean, it's probably not that. In fact, they probably reused the code because didn't they have a Google Doodle that was a Pac-Man? I believe they did. Look, there's dead ends. Oh man, this is hard.
Google even brought Pac-Man into the Ingress experience.
They did?
Well. Yeah.
So if you're playing Ingress, you have Pac-Man?
Yeah.
See, this is nice. The point about this is it's not a stupid make fun of people thing. It's
I know.
Exactly. Disrupt people's expectation with something playable. That's
so we got a new thing. It's called Makerbase. The URL's a little goofy. It's makerba.se because the .com wasn't available.
You got the Swedish one.
Yeah, we did. We got the Swedish one.
Wow. I like it.
Yeah, it's invitation only at the moment because it's really broken and early and we're working on it. But if you are interested and you want in and you're listening to the show, just tweet at me and tell me that you heard about it on Twig and I'll get you in there.
So here's what it says. You make great things. Tell the world what you made. So it's for app creators?
Yeah, it's for digital creators. So not just apps, games, podcasts, shows, anyone that's making any sort of piece of digital culture.
Oh, so I would count.
You would absolutely count.
Oh,
yeah.
good. Okay.
Yeah, it's about projects and makers, not companies, not titles, right? We're talking about like digital things and their makers. And by maker, I don't mean coder. I mean everything. I mean, we mean everything. I mean, designers, writers, project managers, legal help. I mean, investors, everyone who helped bring an app that you love to fruition. We want to capture in Makerbase.
And then what will we get out of this? Is it going to be like a Crunchbase for makers or?
Yeah, some people have made that comparison. I mean, one of our lofty goals, and this is me and my co-founder Anil at ThinkUp, this conversation we've had is like, there's always like a point in your career where you like talk to that person where you kind of like, you get your big break, like somebody takes a chance on you or gives you a job or sparks an idea in you, and that's kind of when your career takes off. So our idea is like if we can make the credit roll behind the apps that you love transparent, if we can have the liner notes for apps, just like CDs have them or the IMDb for apps, the way that movies has them, that'll make it easier for people to say, oh, who do I need to talk to find out more about how this happened, or who are the people that work together a lot? Like you'll see these kind of power couples or power teams go through several projects, like Evan Biz, will go through Odeo and Medium and Blogger and and Twitter. So we want to kind of make the network of creators, of makers, kind of transparent to help people see the faces behind what we made, and honestly to help for underrepresented folks to find their pathways in and make those big breaks happen.
To put it in my terms, it's bylines.
So, yeah, it's bylines, exactly.
Here's Gina. I presume you made this entry.
I did, and everything is editable by everybody. So it's just
the show
it's like
counts?
a Wikipedia too.
It's like Wikipedia. The show counts. Yeah, absolutely. The show is a project for sure. Yep, Medium count. You're writing on Medium, Jeff. I think I added Medium for you. And then each person has a role in a project. And a role could be like I made a suggestion on how to make the logo better, and the role could be I founded it. There's like
That's
a wide
nice.
array. Yeah,
Gina,
I like
just
this
put
idea.
up my latest chapter from the book on Medium that was not meant to be a plug. Sorry, is about, and I think I've talked about on the show is what I call credit right rather than copyright. The need to give credit to people for whatever deal may come down the pike. In the string of collaborative creation online, and this is a start to that. That's really, really important, I think.
I love that.
It's a directory, though, essentially. A opens directory. IMDb is a good example. There's also didn't Mozilla have a similar kind of open database of stuff? This is good. I like this a lot.
there are a lot of projects like this. There's like Angel List and Geek List and Dribble. I mean, there's a lot of communities for people who do particular things, but this is very maker and project focused. So tell me who made Super and what that was like. And eventually we'd like to add like Q&A and, you know, asking
I like that
questions.
idea.
And it's really cool. Like we showed this to Ev Williams actually, and we had added him as like the founder of Blogger. And you can see the edits that people make to their own page. So he actually edited his role in Blogger to add that he had written some code.
Oh, I actually wrote the code.
Like, this guy's a billionaire, and he really wanted to get in there that he had written some like ASP. You know, it's like very funny.
Where did you get this avatar of me?
Okay, so everything right now we're doing autofills from Twitter primarily. So when I made this entry for you, Leo, this was your Twitter avatar.
That's why I've changed my Twitter avatar. So
yeah, you can click on the edit button anywhere and change and change that. So that's your roles. When you go to your page,
got it. I can
click back there, and there's an edit button on the top right there.
Got it. Okay.
And again, this is really
avatar
rough
URL can be different. Got it.
Yeah, we have to make obviously uploading or changing images a little bit nicer than just entering the URL.
Yeah, especially that image. That was my Twitter handle, Twitter image for a brief period of time. Then people explained to me it looked like I was dying in a vat of acid or something.
It's an amazing photo.
I'm not vain. Let's put it that way. I
love that about you.
Because that is not a flattering picture of me there. All right, I'll fix that. But this is cool. I love this idea. And you wrote this all from scratch.
I did. Yeah, we were using a bunch of code from ThinkUp and that framework that I've written when we learned a lot of lessons from ThinkUp. And we want to make the data entry we want to make it fun, right? Because we don't want to give people a job to set up yet another resume. But we want this to sort of differentiate itself enough from LinkedIn and from those kind of other networks to make it worthwhile. We want this to be the place where people go to see the liner notes for an app.
Nice.
I love that you have these Gina touches. Roll. Raised the barn.
Yeah. There's a definite Gina sense of whimsy.
Yes.
Whimsy.
I like writing goofy copy, and then somehow it doesn't get caught.
I hope you come up with a bunch that just go in there, like order the tacos.
Order the tacos. That's a good one.
Order the tacos. I'm the taco orderer.
Brought the donuts.
Complained incessantly.
Added bugs. Herded cats.
Yes.
Yeah.
See if I can find it better.
Is totally
Here's my. This is going to be my new avatar photo, I think. What do you think?
Oh, Leo, you are a beautiful woman. I have to tell you, that is some great eye makeup. I have never seen. That's a great photo.
A lot of work went into that. No, this is actually it's very cool. L'Oreal makes an iOS app that puts makeup on you.
Was that what it is?
This is done.
I thought your wife was tormenting you.
No, this is done programmatically. She just said hold still, and it's actually kind of amazing. She did the same thing to herself, but there's no. That one's a little obviously creepy. This is me. This
is creepy too.
It is so well done. The shadows and the darkness.
It looks real.
I was sure that Lisa had like pinned you down and did makeup.
I know. I'm gonna save the image and make it my my new Twitter handle, Twitter profile. Isn't that great? All right. So nice job on that. Let me go back to the.
This was a 20%. You said
Makerbase here.
Yeah, this was a 20% thing.
What does that mean?
Well, we were slogging through some like back-end projects around payments and the Facebook API changes at ThinkUp, and honestly, it was hard. And so we did Makerbase as kind of a productive distraction. We did Fridays.
Most people go to the bar, Gina.
Yeah, let's write some more code. What do you say?
Jeez.
This is a Neil's idea. He had this idea in 2011, and he talked to me about it back then. And I remember feeling this twinge of, ooh, I really want to work on that. But we were too busy. We were too busy with ThinkUp. And finally, I said to him, "Listen, let's just build this thing." It was his idea. He had talked to a bunch of people about it. A few people had actually started it and it never shipped. And I was like, "Let's just do it." So yeah, this was our Friday fun day.
That's amazing, and it seems very stable and fast and reliable.
From your mouth to the
it seems really good.
Gods. I mean, it's invitation only.
You have a way of jinxing things, Leo. Don't forget.
You know what? We've just sent 1,000 people there easily, and it's handling the traffic very smoothly. What's your back end?
Oh, this is a straight up lamp stack.
You don't run your own servers, though.
No, we've got it on a Linode box. This particular one, we're on AWS for ThinkUp, but we have our staging kind of play sandbox servers on Linode, and we actually put Makerbase on Linode.
Oh, neat.
yeah, it's perfectly fine. Like I said, it's invitation only. So people who are going to it who don't have sign-in rights are just giving us their Twitter credentials. So there's not a lot of
that's probably why we haven't brought it down yet.
Yeah.
But you know, this is great because if you love Gina Trapani, you could come here and just like you would on IMDb, you'd see every movie that somebody was in. You'd see all the projects that Gina's worked on in the days. It's not exactly a resume, in fact, because these are all direct links, right? So that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It's also a GitHub for non-Gitties.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, well, this is my frustration is that there are all these communities for coders, but I just, we want everybody to learn to code, and I think that that's a good idea, but I've really come to this place where I realize that being a coder doesn't necessarily mean that you're the one creating this stuff, right? You know what I mean? Like there's so much more to coding apps and games and to creating.
Well, as a coder, that's generous of you.
Well, I mean, as a coder, I'm
not
really
much
privileged,
more, just a little more.
People think I have some sort of superpower. And it's like I have this idea, and if I only could code, then I could make it happen. But
coding is a superpower. Look at this. You made this, and you made it fairly quickly. I'm guessing.
It is.
That's a superpower. That's a hell of a superpower.
But without writers and designers and even people to do your privacy policy and logo, I mean, there's so much else that goes into it.
Right.
And did you know that this was PHP? There's a good product's going to make the technology behind them invisible, and I think that
totally.
makes a different skill set.
It's funny you should say that because we were talking about App Camp for Girls yesterday on Mac Break Weekly, and Kelly Gumont, who's a counselor there. They have an app that just came out, but she said that's one of the things that the girls learn at App Camp is you don't have to be a coder. You need designer, you need all these people. It's no application is just some person writing code.
No, the real skill to teach is going to be working in teams. I mean, that's what we're seeing about journalism is that we don't work in teams. We are lone wolf.
Well, you should play more World of Warcraft.
Oh, geez.
That would teach you.
I mean, there is this lone wolf kind of mythology around coders as well, and that's
true.
It's about your ability to get the right people together and collaborate and lead, right? I mean, most founders, sure, Ev did some ASP coding on Blogger early on, right? But most founders do, they wear lots of different hats, and I think there's a lot of invisible aspects to
that's really true.
To an app.
Having said that, you should all learn Lisp right now. Makerba.se. That's not hard to. It's
how do you
Swedish.
say it with a Swedish accent?
Makerbase.
All our Swedish viewers, and we have quite a few, are just hating us right now. How do you get a .se? You just go to the Sweden Nick and.
Oh, I think I'm pretty sure we just used Hover. You have to submit some little extra paperwork that you don't for .coms.
But you don't
I forget
anymore
what that is.
have to be in that country to use the country code. In many
no,
countries.
you don't. I think you have to submit the tax number of the organization or something.
Oh, I hope you don't get a Swedish tax bill now.
Yeah, that's no fun.
I think you might get a Swedish tax bill. You're doing business in Sweden.
Oh, jeez. Oh, geez.
Oh, it's okay because they've got great health care there.
Yeah. And wonderful herring and great saunas.
I love Sweden.
I love Sweden. I adore Sweden.
I love it. And you're going to Finland, which Scandinavia is great, but it's very different. The Finnish do not consider themselves, part of that Scandinavian, Norway, Sweden, Denmark thing.
They speak Korean.
It's a Russo. It's a very different language, and it's like Korean, which is really bizarre when you say that. Yeah, there you go. I am really close now. I held off ordering the Gear VR. I have a Samsung Galaxy S6, but I think now I'm going to order it because because it's more comfortable than cardboard. It has a strap. For one thing, it's a strap-on, so you can leave it on. I shouldn't. Oh, my doorbell's ringing. I hate it when that happens. I am a little too wired now. But I think that I've kind of come around on the VR thing.
Yeah.
And it's funny, it's cardboard that did it, not Oculus Rift.
Yes, that's right.
Yes.
It's the VR for the people and the augmented reality for the people because it's going to. And I think one of the coolest things that they showed at the event, Google I/O, during the keynote, was this new program to get cardboard into schools.
Yes.
And it's such a perfect solution because it's not like, Apple's plan to get iPads into schools so that every school has to pay $600 or whatever dollars.
But wait a minute.
It's cheap.
Cardboard's cheap, but what's driving it, and the reason it's cheap is you still need a smartphone.
Yes,
Well,
you do.
Where's that coming
Kids
from?
all got them now. It's
oh,
like,
no. Kids don't all got them, and especially below 6th grade, K through 6.
What they showed was boxes that had the smartphones in them. So I'm guessing that people will donate.
It costs the same as an iPad.
Well, it depends on what phone you get, right? I mean, there are
get.
definitely less expensive options.
What's the minimum
Wi-Fi,
iPad? What's the minimum cardboard?
It says, well, like I bought my. You don't need a phone connection. You're on Wi-Fi at school.
Okay, so you could get what then?
What if
you
it was
can
like
get
an Android One?
One for under
$99? $100?
Yeah,
and I'm sure that, I mean, you said that kids under the age of, I've been reading a lot of stuff lately that shows that in the United States, at least, a huge percentage of even 6th graders have phones and carry them every day to school. And so it'll be one of those things where they'll say, okay, who's got their own phone? Okay, who doesn't have a phone? And then they can pass out the school's phones for this purpose. But the benefit is as they talked about in the presentation, is it's a way to get kids really super engaged, to actually immerse them in the content that they're talking about rather than just sitting there listening to a teacher go on and on. I think the value is massive. And the additional cost, I think, can be very, very low. Of course, Palo Alto School District will spend a fortune on brand new phones for all of them.
That's kind of my point. This happens all the time. The tech community gets all excited, puts hardware into schools, or sets us kind of stuff up and says, "Hey, see you later, bye-bye." And there's no curriculum, there's no training for the teachers. And in this case, there's this assumption that everybody's got an Android or a high-end smartphone.
I think they'd all have to be school issued because the teacher is controlling them from the tablet, right? So they've all got to be school issued for this to be.
This is not a cheap thing you're talking about here.
If they roll this out well, they're gonna focus on lower income. The kids really need it. You know what I mean? So I hope we're gonna see things like Donors Choose, and we're gonna see other programs. Hopefully, Google's gonna throw money, in places other than Palo Alto and figure out ways to help people.
Google has a very compelling argument in the schools. I mean, the Chromebook is, of course, the best way to put a computing platform in a school. But I'm not, everybody focuses on the fact that it's just the viewer is cheap.
Well, but I think
the viewer is just a holder.
Right. But the way to look at this, I think, is that the alternative to something like Google Cardboard, the alternative to low-cost VR and augmented reality is nothing. It's not going to get cheaper than this. In order to do VR, you have to have a good display. You have to have some sort of connection. You have to have all the things that a smartphone has. And there are very few industries that have the economies of scale, entire industries, entire countries that have been built, that have built industries around making all that stuff super, super cheap. And so it's basically the only alternative argument to, if the argument is that this is too expensive, then virtual reality has no place in schools.
Well, that may be another argument.
Yeah,
it's the cheapest virtual reality you can get.
Well said, Mike. Yeah.
So a rubber wading pool would also be the cheapest pool you could get. Doesn't necessarily mean that this belongs to the schools. And there's a whole additional thing of, so you've got, let's say you figured out a way to get all the kids cardboard. Now you got to get the teacher a tablet. And you got to get curriculum associated with it. Remember the LA Unified School District said they were going to put an iPad in the hands of every student. They made a deal with Pearson to develop curriculum, and it's been a horrible failure. They're suing both Apple and Pearson. The curriculum wasn't developed. The teachers weren't trained. Most of these iPads ended up in the back of the classroom unused. It kind of makes me mad because I think Silicon Valley and we tech enthusiasts love this idea of tech in schools, but we don't follow through. We don't go the whole distance on it,
Yeah, that's true.
Another thing here, though, Leo, is that if you look at an elementary school, it's not like every classroom needs this setup. Right, one setup for an entire school.
You're buying one per class, right? You're buying a class.
You're buying one per school.
Yeah,
and Paulson just gave $400 million to Harvard, the last school on the earth that possibly needs it.
No, I agree.
Out there. And
equipping the school is probably the least of the problem.
Yeah, I'm not saying this is the first thing to buy at all. I agree with that too. Yeah. Museum of Natural History was at I/O. They did one of the explorations. I'm going through the same thing in news. People are going gaga over VR, and I'm saying, well, hold on. It really hasn't had any impact yet. We really have, it's the latest new shiny toy. What's its real value going to be? Undetermined. Nonetheless, yes, we go gaga and we say, that's cool.
I'm excited. I want to build a jump camera. That's the 16 GoPro or 16, it doesn't have to be GoPros, but that's the demo, 16 camera rig that GoPro will sell, but you could also build yourself, and then the Jump software assembles it. And my sense is you could do this in real time, which means I could say to our audience, watch live. You can download the show later, but if you'd like to watch live as if you're in the studio with us, we have set up one of these rigs right where you would be sitting, and now you can look around and participate.
Oh, that's interesting. You can imagine a whole different kind of talk show.
Yeah.
Where it's not just a camera going to one level, it's that you're in the middle of couches of a discussion.
Right.
You know, we
look around as people talk. That's cool. Yeah.
Well, you know, imagine a round table like the kind that Alex Lindsay built for other purposes for conversations, and you have it in the middle of the table.
Yeah, we could do that.
And that's
I like that.
Yeah, wouldn't that be great? And then you hear somebody talking over here, so you turn this way and so on.
That's very
By the way, Dr. Mom's saying, oh, great, Twit's going to now make me barf. Believe me, I get nauseous with Oculus Rift, absolutely. I've never gotten nauseous with, I'm not sure why, with cardboard, but I think it's because you're not moving. And the thing isn't, it's not, you don't have this situation you do in Rift where you're not moving physically, but you're moving virtually. That is disorienting to the inner ear. That is what makes you nauseous, I think. There's also latency issues. I'm sure that that's not necessarily solved in cardboard, but I never was bothered by it, partly because you can just go like this.
Yeah. Right.
You're not going to really spend hours. You're not playing a game. The games are what makes you nauseous, frankly.
Right.
Thank you, Matt, for putting this in here. This was from the Google Research. Oh, Jason did this? All right, Google Research blog. It's talking about neural networks. Neural networks are a form of artificial intelligence, computer software that learns. The way you teach it is just feed it stuff, feed it lots of stuff. And in this case, these neural networks, which are attempting to simulate the human brain, is being fed images. Actually, this is quite a good conversation of how this works. Image classification, speech recognition are two very big areas where neural networks are being used to try to, get better at this. And there's some really cool images in here of, I don't know, what are these? Matt, would you explain what I'm looking at?
Well, you basically try to train a neural network, a deep neural network, to recognize specific things, whether it be ants or antelopes or dumbbells, and then you can turn it on its head and have the network sort of amplify things, or given one image, kind of take that and sort of build on it, and then it becomes self-reinforcing, and so.
So you're looking for the platonic ideal of fork or ant,
yes,
or parachute, or banana.
And then you could feed it back into itself, and then once it sees a little bit of a fork, it turns it into more of a fork. And so before you know it, you get this macro level structure, like a dog on one end and a fish on the other end, that actually looks like an object, because it could be plausible. And it's funny because a lot of people on Google were reading the comments on Reddit, and Reddit was sort of saying, this is exactly what acid looks like, man.
Well, there's something to be said. There's not merely a stoner talk in there. That's kind of what happens when your brain doesn't organize information very well because it's drugged. Well, that's what the neural network kind of is like.
This is your Google. This is your Google on drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there might be actually some learnings about how the visual cortex works.
Yeah.
How it processes stuff, together with LSD or whatever.
But notice, by the way, these are images of dumbbells. It seems like no dumbbell is complete if you look closely without a muscular arm.
Yeah.
So there's dumbbells, but there's also arms in here. And when the computer sees those two linked, it says dumbbell. Might be hard to see a dumbbell without an arm holding it, though.
Right, and it only knows what it sees. And so if it never sees a dumbbell without an arm, then it's like, well,
of course,
that's got to be something else.
They go together. Wow, this is beautiful. This does look like you're on acid. This is wildebeests on acid, apparently. Wow, that is quite gorgeous.
The Seurat paintings are pretty cool.
Isn't that amazing? So Georges Seurat, who was a pointillist.
It's all about pixels.
Yeah. Wow. Is that neat? I don't know. I don't know if there's anything to be learned from that. Here's the sky. So these are the representations internally of the neural network. Here's that
That's pretty
dog
crazy.
snail
Love
thing you were talking about. Wow. Oh man, who needs drugs, man?
It's very, very Van Gogh.
Yeah, totally Van Gogh. Yeah.
But I think there is something to be said of, if a brain is not doing a job of organizing the information in the brain, it probably does look a lot like a neural network, a very naive understanding. This is the Admiral dog, the pig snail, the camel bird, and the dogfish. Wow.
So I guess it also shows a little bit, deep neural networks, they're going to be popping up everywhere for, I think maybe Facebook did something where you can give it a caption and it will generate an image to match that. So, there's deep neural networks are going to show up in all kinds of places, in the next 5 years, not in the next 50 years.
Is this what they're using for face recognition, for instance?
I mean, Google Brain and the deep neural network stuff is used, I believe, but this might be a subpart, a different, branch of that. So.
Right.
Let's talk about something that I know will get everybody kind of a little amplified here. Sundar Pichai spoke with Connor Doherty of the New York Times about intrusive technology and how it impacts our lives. I thought it was an interesting conversation. The interview itself is one thing, and Jeff, we'll talk about that here in a second. The point that Pichai was kind of making repeatedly through the interview, I thought were some interesting points. He's basically talking about how Google's aim with their products is to be user-centric, to make users happier, more productive people, not to get in the way and deteriorate the quality of life. Basically, that the burden is on the user right now. And Sundar believes that that's not the way it should be. The burden should actually be on Google to create an experience, and developers to create apps that relieve the burden of the user and actually place the information in a user's hands without the user having to kind of seek it out. So I thought it was kind of an interesting talk. Did you get a chance to take a look at that, Aaron?
No, I was just looking at it. I'm just still trying to figure out. I mean, what do you guys think? I think it should be in the hands of the user. I mean, I guess so, but I mean, it seems like Google's in a pretty good position to do that, though, right?
Excuse me while I kill an ant. I'll be right back.
Oh no.
I think Pichai really kind of touched on what I think is probably one of the biggest challenges for Google in product design, which is like Google wants to create products that anticipate your needs maybe before you even know that you need them, right? To give you the answer before you ask. But they want to do that without being prescriptive, right? So this interviewer, which Jeff will speak to in a minute, said, are we all on our phones during dinner? Like, is this during dinner time with our family? Is this a good thing? And Pichai was like, that's not a technology decision, right? Like that's a human decision. That's a parent's decision when kids are involved, but how do you, we all know sort of the power of defaults and the power of the way like a great app works can really affect your behavior. So it was interesting to hear him talk about being user-centric. And then this interview was just really, really pushing him in this direction of, but is this really making our lives better? I think it's clear to particularly viewers of this show that it's a net positive. I'm pretty optimistic about technology, and I think probably most people in our audience are. Maybe that's up for debate. That's not up for debate for me. But it did feel like this interviewer was just digging for, how we're all buried in our screens and not connecting, with each other and not present anymore.
Yeah, he was writing another story that appeared as a commentary in Sunday Review in the Times about applications and hardware that try to wean you off your phone dependency. So he was looking for a quote from Sundar. I've been a reporter. I teach it. I get what's going on here. It's the journalistic disease of saying, I wrote the whole story. Now there's this little empty spot there, just perfect for a Sundar Pichai quote. And I'm going to go and get that quote. And so then you ask Sundar the question, basically, aren't phones kind of ruining our lives and our dinner? And Sundar doesn't cooperate with him and says, well, no, I don't think so. I think that we're trying to give people what they want. So what do you do as a reporter? You ask the question again and again and again. Yeah. I count basically 6 times you essentially ask the same question. And Sundar is of a rank he can't say, kid, F you. I'm not going to answer. Because what I do at some point when this happens to me, and I go get interviewed off, when it happens and I see it happening, I say, listen, you can ask the question as often as you like. I'm not going to give you the answer you want, so stop. But Sundar can't say that because otherwise he's going to sound like he's being pissy. So the poor guy has to sit there and just wait through it again and then find another way to say, no, I don't agree with you, without saying, no, I don't agree with you. And so he said, as Gina pointed out, he said, listen, is it the phone's decision? Is it Google's decision what kids or parents should do during dinner? That's for families to do. Who wants Google in the middle of that? No. And he says, you're not asking a technology question. We're here to tech technology. The other problem I have is, and I know he's on the beat, but you have the chance to sit down with the second most powerful man at the most powerful company on earth. And this is all you do? Is to say, aren't the things you're making really causing life to be awful? Ugh. That's what drives me nuts. It's more of it's the techno panic is the beat. And I just see more and more and more of this going on these days where publications that I respect are just buying right in to the contrarian view of technology that, wait a second, no, isn't this bad? Isn't this bad? And okay, I get the point, and maybe a discussion would be fine, but geesh.
I really liked how he kind of used himself as an example. It was the reporter was asking, like, do you find in meetings that people are on their laptops or on their phones? And he said, well, one thing that I've learned about myself is that I don't multitask well. Some people do, but I don't. So I don't check email all day long. I do email, separately and distinct from the rest of my work. And that's how I work. Right. And I felt like, if he was being pissy, as you said, Jeff, he would have been like, this is a matter of self-awareness, of figuring out who you are and what your priorities are. And you check your email, you look at your phone, not as an impulse, but, as a mindful decision, because it's the right thing to do at the moment. Right.
Right.
If your sister's kid's about to get born, you check your phone. If not, then you don't.
There are a couple of great moments where Sundar said, well, you know what? We had a dinner before I.O. We usually try to put the phones in the basket. But the one group that can't give up their phones is the PR people, because you damn reporters keep calling them. Right? He said it nicer than that, but that was what it was. My other favorite moment was the reporter says, and I found this just absurd. Well, one way that I try to, tame my own evil instincts with phones is I allow it to be in only one room in the house. So I imagine that he got grandma's remember the old telephone table that sat in grandma's front room?
Yep. Yeah.
And right, and that's where the phone was. He had the little chair next to the phone and the wire into the wall next to the phone. Hey, we invented new technology that lets you carry it anywhere. Wow. I'm going to put it back in one room with a string tied there.
But having said that, I suppose it still falls on the user in that case, right? If that works for you to curb your usage patterns, then I guess more power to you. And what Sundar is definitely saying here is it's not really up to Google to make those decisions. And it seemed like the interviewer was trying to get the Google has a master plan for how you should use your device. And what Sundar repeatedly said, as you were saying, is that doesn't lie in Google's responsibility. That's up to an individual to make that type of decision.
I'm on my Android Wear Watch today. I have, in honor of Back to the Future Day, I have a flux capacitor. It even has a little Dymo ribbon that says "Shield Eyes from Light," and I think you can set it to travel through time. That's
very nice.
Yeah, it is Back to the Future Day, and we're so pleased to welcome Matt Cutts to the table.
Hey there!
Hey, missed you too. Are you still home, Matt? You still at home?
I am calling from Omaha this week.
What? Nebraska?
Yep.
Huh? Is this for family?
That's where the in-laws are.
Oh,
that's where the in-laws are located. Yeah. So.
I think they have better connectivity than you do, Matt.
Wouldn't that be ironic?
Very clear.
If they have, I'm like, can we get Google Fiber in the Midwest just out of curiosity?
Man. Well, we were talking before the show about the new Nexus phones, and I guess 5X and 6P went out for review to select reviewers across the country. Our own Jason Howell got a review unit. He's working on the 6P review for Before You Buy this week, and I just thought I brought in my old Nexus 6 just to kind of compare and contrast. So the Nexus 6 is bigger, obviously, 6-inch screen. This is a 5.7-inch screen. But I think in many respects, I mean, this is a plastic back. Shamu, we loved you, but I think the time has come to take a look at the next generation of Nexus. And boy, I can't wait to hear your review, Jason, but I'm just impressed as heck.
Any previews, Jason? What are you thinking so far?
I'm really, really liking the device. No surprise. I mean, the design of the device with kind of the aluminum body and everything just feels
beautiful.
Really nice.
It's heavy, but that's okay. It gives a sense of quality.
Yeah, exactly. I don't mind a little bit of weight because it makes me feel, at least in my brain, it makes me feel like it's got a solid build and it's not hollow and empty. Right. The camera bump at the top that everybody freaked out about, not nearly as pronounced as you might fear, although it might still bug some people. I don't know.
It's there.
It's there. It's not like it's
ironic because you don't. This whole right side is unnecessary. The camera and the flash and the sensor on the left. Really, there's stuff over here.
They packed that full of stuff.
Oh, there is stuff.
Yeah,
there might be antennas in there.
Yep.
I think.
Antennas.
That's where pretty much all the antennas reside, as well as the camera.
Because there's a plastic bottom here.
These are
and
all the focus and
you know, there's other places where the antenna can leak out, but okay.
Yeah, they put it all up there in that little window.
Stereo speakers, like that.
The speakers sound great, especially compared to the Nexus 6. My car stereo is broken right now, so if I want to listen to anything, it's through the speakers on full blast.
Really?
So I've actually really noticed a difference between the two. It's not something I normally spend a lot of time with, and I have on this time around.
Let's play some music through here. I do love front-facing speakers. I think those are... Oh, it's got an ad. That's all right. I'm going to turn it all the way up. That's one thing that's changed. Dun, 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 dun. Skip ad, you don't mind. Lil Wayne. How about Lil Wayne?
Did you just start I'm Feeling Lucky or something?
Yeah. Well, it sounds good. I mean, it's not super bassy, obviously. But
yeah, you're not going to get bass out of any of these speakers necessarily, but...
Okay.
Blah, 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 blah.
I'm feeling unlucky now.
I will say,
worried about that.
Fingerprint sensor is really, really nice.
It's on the back.
It's so fast. It's
Some people
so
have
incredibly
said,
fast.
oh, the only problem with having it on the back is then that's enough. Thank you. Oh, Trap Queen, I like that. Is that you can't use it on the front, but big deal. I mean, I don't think that's a big deal. And you can also do the thing, which I always do, where if it's at a trusted location or tied to a trusted Bluetooth device, it doesn't lock at all. So presumably, if it's in your office, sitting on a desk or whatever, you're not going to be locked in.
With all of those extra security features that you can activate in Lollipop and Marshmallow. What I've realized is I don't enter my PIN anymore because the fingerprint is sufficient, and I don't always have to use my fingerprint because I've got all the other things active, right? So depends on how comfortable you feel.
I have it in my on the vent in the car because the Waze is my means of getting around, and I just fear having to take it off and put my finger on.
Yeah.
Right.
That's true. Although
you tie
if
it to your car's Bluetooth and you say that that's a trusted Bluetooth.
Oh, car's what?
Oh, never
my
mind.
Car's
that's
what?
right. You don't have.
Do you have a watch?
If it works with steam-powered engines, it might be okay, but
yeah,
I have a watch.
Well, there you go. Sync it to your watch, and then if it's
because don't
near
forget,
you.
I've been waiting to get a car with Android Auto.
Right.
Yeah.
I can't get any straight answers out of Audi about when the heck it's coming on the car I want.
So you'll probably put a case on it. So slipperiness is not really a big issue, I don't think.
Yeah, I spent a day without the case, and the whole time I was afraid.
Yeah, it feels slippery.
Really?
It feels very slick on the back here.
Yeah, so I put that case on I think it was this morning, and I actually really like the case a lot, but it makes me feel at least a little bit more comfortable that I'm not going to do what I did to my Nexus 6 with this.
Is it one of the ones they sell on the site?
Yeah, it is. It's actually, it was part of the review unit package is what's on it.
Yeah, this is clear. See, it says Nexus. This is clearly a Google.
It's really nice. It feels really nice.
How about storage? Enough, you think? This is a 64 gig phone.
Yeah, well, this one's the 16. The review unit, I believe, is the 16. So what is it? 16?
No, I don't think so. It says 12.2 gigabytes used of 53.67.
Oh, so it's the 64.
This
Sorry.
is a 64. Yeah.
Okay, so it's 32, 64, and 128. you know, I mean, you don't have a micro SD, so it depends on how much you're storing on the device. I think 64 is perfectly sufficient for me.
Absolutely, yeah.
But you have a 128 option if you really need to go big.
Main thing I care about, battery life.
Okay, so here's where I have a disclaimer. I was going to be reviewing this week. I'm not now because this device is faulty, actually. There was something going on yesterday where my battery was going really wacko. When I reboot it, it gives me, before the Google logo, it gives me this big red asterisk, and it says, your device is corrupt.
Oh, that's the boot protection.
Yeah, exactly. There's something weird going on with it. I contacted Google PR. They're sending me a replacement device, so my review is going to be next week. I don't want to place any judgments on this device for things like battery.
Story.
I'm just going to say,
story. This way, Leo
look at
gets
this.
to play with one.
7 a.m. You took it off just before 7 a.m. You still have 60% left. They think you're going to get past midnight.
I think that's pretty reasonable.
That's all I would ask if I could just get through the day.
Yesterday I took it off at 7, and by 3 it was like 13%.
But that, again, yours was wonky, right?
Yes, exactly. That's what I mean. Like I was like, okay, that doesn't sound right compared to what I've heard from people. So I'm going to get a new unit and do
you've
a
been
fresh...
using this one or not?
Yeah, I've been using that one.
So this is, you know, that's decent slope. That's decent.
I would say
usage.
so. And, you know, it has the fast charge capability, so you can charge it up super quick.
I like Type-C. So Matt Cutts is you're getting the 6P, not the 5X, right?
I ordered the 5X, and now I'm like, maybe I'll order the 6P and decide which one, or maybe I'll just have a house phone, and then one for going out, That's how it goes.
That's one way to solve the battery problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have my evening phone. I think the battery life I've been hearing from reviews on the 5X is not so hot.
Is okay.
Yeah, so I think
5X.
that you want, and you know what, this doesn't, boy, especially compared to Shamu, this doesn't feel that big.
No, you know what, it's a little narrower, but it's a little taller. And I think between the two, I think that's the better way to go. The Nexus 6 just felt too unwieldy when you're doing one-handed operation. Yeah. And the 6P, I mean, that small change in narrowness actually makes a huge difference.
I can't wait. I think this is going to be my go-to phone.
For a month.
And the camera for a month. Hey, that's all you can expect.
Hey, we know you well, Leo.
That's my life.
Yep.
That's a long time in Leoville.
Yeah.
It's true. It's true.
A month. Oh, my God. That's incredible. Well, the iPhone, I've been using the iPhone 6s Plus, which I really like. And battery life on that is amazing. But if I can get through the day, that's all I need. That's all I care about.
Agreed.
It feels really premium.
Yeah, it really does. It's nice. The screen is fantastic. It's
good screen, yeah.
You know, it's a Samsung panel. The latest basically Samsung panel. So right on par with what you get in the Note 5, and everything pops. It's nice.
Nice. And it feels fairly swift. But is this the replacement, or is this?
No, this is still the faulty.
So it's still maybe messed up, huh?
So keep that in mind.
Yeah. Oops, can't capture this. I got to do the lens blur thing. All right. Slowly raise your device. Keep subject. All right.
There you go.
Now, I can change the focus to here, or to there, or I don't know. I guess not.
I think you've got a little.
It's still processing.
Yeah.
Nice.
Now we don't have the 5X in studio, but Gina.
Do you have? What?
Oh.
Yeah.
So you went with the little one.
I did. I went with the little one. I've had this thing for 3 hours.
Oh, okay.
So.
All right, give us a full review, top to bottom. We want no details.
I love it so far. This is my first experience with the fingerprint sensor. So, unlocking the phone, that's one thing. That's going to be nice. But for me, it's LastPass.
Yeah.
Yep.
I am always typing in my super long LastPass password.
Yep.
Just being able to tap my fingerprint, so much better. I also had the first time experience the thing where you take your old phone and you tap it to your new phone, and it's just like bloop, and it just sets up your new phone with everything. That is amazing. Have you guys done that?
Yeah.
Last time around.
It's actually one of the winning features of Android, I think.
And something you don't get with the OnePlus 2 because they left out NFC, right? So.
Right. Yeah. That was really nice. I have had weightier phones. This feels kind of light and plasticky to me, and I'm kind of like Jason.
It is really light. Yeah.
It's like the car door thing, right? They try to add weight to car doors because people perceive that the car is a higher quality if the door's a little heavy and it has that chunk when you close it. Same deal with phones for me. So it feels a little bit flimsy because I'm just used to a giant phone, but I'm really happy to have a one-handed device, and I don't know. I'm interested to see how battery life is. Like I said, I just charged it. It arrived today, and I just charged it a couple hours ago, so I'm still kind of finding my way around.
So I'm playing with the blur thing. So I'm making that in focus. Now I'm going to make this in focus. It's pretty fast.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Nice.
I feel like this is because that's a
Now that's built into.
That's in the camera.
Google Photos? Oh, it's in the camera.
It's one of the camera settings. So the camera is very simple, but I like that. I don't mind that. You get a timer, you get an HDR, it's an auto by default, you get flash, you get a menu here that gives you photosphere, panorama, lens blur, you get a larger setting, but it's a very simple camera with video choices, UHD 4K, HD 1080p, HD 720p, and you can also do slow-mo, right?
Yep. I haven't tested that yet, actually. I forgot about that.
Stabilization built in. This is nice. Nice.
No.
And I like the way you get to video on this, by the way. You just swipe right, right?
Yeah. Left to right, or the other way to switch modes.
Yeah. That's a good idea.
I heard one complaint was that with the double tap of the power button to turn on the
that's kind of weird, isn't it?
Because it locks it, and then it opens it up in camera, but now you've locked the phone. Is that true?
Well, let's see. Actually, I can't tell because this phone doesn't have a lock. I mean, you're in camera. What more do you want? And with a fingerprint reader, it unlocks pretty darn quick.
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
Oh yeah, then it is locked again.
Yeah. Lack of OIS is an issue, but.
Yeah, I would agree. And Google had explained, they had a Reddit AMA a few weeks back, and they had explained that basically the larger, pixel size helps to improve that. But
that's what HTC said with the one, right?
Yeah, I just feel like no matter what, you get more stable images with OIS, so that is a loss. But
I did order a new SIM because if you're a Google Fi user, you have to get the new SIM to use with the new phones.
Really?
Yeah. They warned me about that.
If you want to, I think if you stay with the Nexus 6, you're fine. But if you want to go with the 6P or the 5X, then they'd like you to have a new SIM. Yeah.
Are these your pictures, Jason?
So this is slow-mo of a hummingbird shot with a 6P.
Is this yours?
No, this is not mine. This was a demo footage released before the devices hit anyone's hands.
Oh,
isn't that cool?
Wow.
That is really cool. Holy moly. So Jeffrey, let's kick it off. We're going to have to talk about Alphabet at some point. Let's start the show with Alphabet.
Yeah.
A, B, C, X, Y, Z. That's the page because Google forgot to get alphabet.com.
No, it's
or they didn't care.
ABC.WTF.
Well, I guess that's one question. Will anybody ever go to alphabet.com? Because it isn't really a destination. Who cares?
Now, my question, my related question is, will there be Alphabet swag? Because I want it.
Yeah.
So we'll let you kick things off, Jeff, because you wrote a good piece at buzzmachine.com. I know you've been thinking hard about this. What the hell?
You know, in the second day, we've seen lots of people trying to find some cynical motive, which I find ridiculous because Larry Page is, I think, the least cynical CEO I can imagine. I think it is what they say it is. This allows Larry Page and Sergey Brin to rise up to the strategic stratosphere. It allows them to do crazy things without affecting directly the business of Google, apart from taking Google's revenue to pay for it. It provides more transparency to Wall Street about what's being spent on what, and we'll see how exactly that plays itself out. It allows them to put Sundar Pichai, who's done brilliant work, in full charge of the business.
And the many Sundar Pichais. There are many people that can be more easily retained through this move.
Look at Nest, look at other places. Yeah. And, you know, the thing about it is, you know, but the anecdote I told is, and I don't know if I told this on the show before, but when I think I did, when I met Larry at I.O., by way of introduction, I said, I'm the guy who wrote the book, What Would Google Do? And he said, oh yes, I remember. And then he said, what would Google do? I want to know.
Tell me what.
And, you know, so it makes a punchline to this story, but I think that the point is that Larry Page doesn't know what Google will do. That's exactly the point, is that even he will be surprised. They're looking for big problems and big solutions and moonshots and all that kind of stuff. And there's been efforts also to make analogs here to call this Berkshire Hathaway, but that's not.
It's not even close.
As brilliant as Buffett is, he doesn't invent things. I'll call it close to the old AT&T Bell Labs, but it's not that either. That was, pure science, pure research. Amazing things happened because there was that freedom to do that and the monopoly to support it. But I think that in this case, this is about invention and entrepreneurship at its purest form and the ability to go and try big things. And that's why I'm delighted with this. The final point to make is the question about what impact this will have on dear old Europe and its regulators from the old world. And one argument says that this will make it better because part of the problem Google gets into is when it shares stuff across divisions. But the truth is that everything that they've gotten in trouble for sharing across is still in Google Inc. And I'm afraid that I guarantee you we'll see, just we saw the cover of Der Spiegel a few months ago about the world government of Silicon Valley. This will probably, I guarantee you it'll get cited as, see, Larry Page wants to take over the world and do all these huge things. Yeah, he does, and damn good for it. And that's what we should be supporting. That's what capitalism is for. So I don't think Europe's problems will go away at all for this. I don't think there's some gigantic secret agenda to this. I think it's what it appears to be, which is freedom to innovate.
You take the post that Larry put at abc.xyz at face value. It's exactly as he said it is.
Yeah, I don't see, because why else do this?
Right.
There's a lot of efforts to say. It's funny how many posts, if you look, I just started a new column minutes ago for the Observer in New York on media, and I wrote about how we all write the same story over and over and over again, and how I hate that.
Yeah.
How many blue moon stories can we have? Well, in this case, how many times did I see the headline, "Why Google did this?" As if everybody knows exactly why Google did this. Well, Google said why Google did this, and you can believe them or not. But yeah, I think, if Comcast did something like this, if Verizon did something like this, if companies like that did something, would I be cynical or at least skeptical, better put, of their motives? Yeah, but I don't think we've had the cause to be skeptical and cynical about Larry Page. I think that he's trying to do good things and make good products and, make a lot of money along the way. And so far, that's what he's done. And the crazy stuff, who else would have the audacity to say, let's save thousands of lives on the roads by inventing self-driving cars, and the entrepreneurial vision and technological vision to make it into a business. That's the kind of audacity that made this country great, damn it, not Donald Trump's hat. And that's what we want to encourage.
You agree, Matthew?
Well, I mean, sure. I don't see any ulterior motive. I don't see I don't see it being some vast evil plan. But I must admit, I do wonder whether there aren't a bunch of different motives. I mean, obviously freeing Larry and Sergey up to do whatever they want is one of those motives, to get them away from the sort of humdrum day-to-day Google, which churns out all the cash, but has become quite boring. But I wonder if some of it isn't a little bit of, not sleight of hand, but a little bit of a shell game to try and keep the regulators' eyes off what, is happening with Google, or to keep Google part of this.
How does that happen, Matthew?
You'd have to be pretty dumb to be fooled. It's Alphabet now. Never mind.
Play that, Matthew.
We are talking about EU regulators.
I'm trying to figure it out. Play it through for me about how this puts fences around things in a way. And I'm not asking this in a hostile way. I'm curious to try to figure out that obviously that's a factor in what Google does right now, is to try to have that. So they don't want to do anything that's going to make it worse. How do you think it could make it better? For the regulation question,
I don't think it necessarily puts fences around things, but when you think about the public entity, the traded one, the one that has to report its results, is going to be Alphabet now, not Google. So to some extent, and I'm not saying they're going to confuse things deliberately or in an illegal way, or I'm just saying it takes the focus off Google to some extent and puts it on this other thing called Alphabet, which is going to have multiple different things doing multiple different, businesses and markets and business models, and there's going to be things flowing back and forth, none of which Alphabet will have to talk about it if it doesn't want to. It won't have to report anything that those underlying operating subsidiaries do if it doesn't want to, right? Including Google. So Google was the reporting entity before. Do you see what I mean? Whereas now Alphabet's going to be...
but when it comes to the activities of, let's say, privacy, my contention is that Google is a personal services company, and as a result, it needs to know me as a person and serve me across all its divisions. So it serves me still across the browser and Android and Gmail and Docs and so on and so forth, and Maps and Waze and so on and so forth. So all that's where they've gotten in trouble lately, in the one sense. Right. The other way they've gotten in trouble, that's on the privacy. The other way they've gotten in trouble in Europe in the current antitrust is they promote their own products. Right. Well, they're still going to promote Maps within Chrome and within search. And it doesn't matter whether they promote self-driving cars and sell you that or not. Fine, they'll buy ads for that, whatever. That'll make a corporate exchange. So I think that the areas where they've gotten in trouble in Europe, and let's be clear that's mainly in Europe, it's still the case within Google, and it's not about financial reporting. It's about behavior, is what they'd say in Europe, I think.
But I'm also thinking they're probably thinking about the future. They're not just thinking about the things they've gotten into trouble for already. In fact, many of those things have become irrelevant or are becoming irrelevant. I think they're thinking about what they may do in the future, which includes acquiring other companies, Twitter, whatever, and they will become presumably operating units of Alphabet, and then they can do whatever they want within those operating units. Do you know what I mean? They can not. I'm not just talking about the sort of public-facing promotional aspect that they've gotten into trouble for. I'm talking about the actual structural aspect of the company itself and the things it owns and the things that those businesses do between each other.
By the way, I was on Bloomberg about this yesterday, and the other guy who was on the show said that the price jump that came from this announcement itself was just enough to buy Twitter.
It was, yeah.
And the market loves it.
Yeah.
It went up 5% in an hour. That's enough to buy Twitter. That's $20 billion.
Yeah.
And which is odd in a way because, Wall Street typically hates holding companies. It hates giant things that you can't make sense of.
But the argument is there'll be more transparency here.
Because they'll have to report results for these other divisions.
Will they? Yeah. They won't, though.
But you're saying it's the same.
They'll be expected to. They'll be expected to.
Well, they've said they will. They don't have to. In fact, they could say, hey, Alphabet's doing great. Here's all our operating units. Google made this much. Thanks for stopping by.
Yeah, they
don't provide any detail.
Really, is that the case? I mean, isn't the Google stock is being transferred to Alphabet stock? So if you're a stockholder, don't they have the same responsibility now to report Alphabet results that they had for Google results?
Yeah, well, the point Matthew's point is exactly right. They don't have to say, just as Google never had to say exactly what YouTube was making.
They could say Alphabet as a whole.
Yes.
That's all they have to report.
Okay.
But the arguments I've heard all around is there'll be more transparency rather than less, that there will indeed be transparency.
There could be. And it also, I mean, one of the benefits I can see is this structure makes it a lot easier to say in the future, spin off or spin out part of YouTube, for example, spin off or spin out part of Nest. Take that.
Which is a danger, don't you think, Matthew? If Europe starts to think about saying, let's break up Google because it's too big, which we hear all the time, then does this beg that question?
Mike Elgin, you haven't had a chance to weigh in. Let's let Mike tell us what he thinks, and then I'm going to tell you how you're all wrong. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, this is a groundbreaking move because I believe that Alphabet right now has 3 employees, and their valuation is
Larry, Sergey, and
Porat,
Ruth the CFO.
Porat, yeah.
And Dave Drummond. They have a few more. I think maybe it's 5 or 6.
Even if it's 10,
it's worth $400 billion.
But they have all the valuation of all the companies, and so from a valuation per employee or an employee per
very
value,
high.
It's very high. So, and that's a completely irrelevant point, but interesting nonetheless. I think there are other reasons that make the. I agree with both of you. Actually, I think that this makes a ton of sense. I don't think there's reason for cynicism, and there are reasons they didn't mention. I think one of these, for example, is, when they bought Nest, they told Tony Fadell we would keep it independent, like a completely separate company.
And that's been a little bit of a challenge.
It's a challenge because
you have a
there
CEO
are other
under
divisions.
a CEO.
Exactly. And also there are other divisions within Google who would like that status, but just because they weren't acquired under the same circumstances. And so this sort of normalizes all this. But I think one of the least appreciated benefits of this is the timeline issue. If you compare like 2 extreme examples like Nest and Calico, okay? Nest is selling products right now. They have 2.0, 3.0 products right now. They're actively shipping and developing new products. It's a going concern. Calico is like, in the year 3000, we will alleviate death. And so the timelines of those 2 enterprises are so out of whack with each other that each of these organizations seems to be based on timeline to a very large extent. What is the timeline that these initiatives and projects and products are going to come online and be developed? And so I think that's a very liberating fact. And we talked about Google's gigantism. Jeff mentioned it, but this is a company that not only doesn't know how big things are going to be, they want things to be as big as they can possibly be. And every container, I've been farm sitting this week. I've been taking care of somebody's farm. Imagine a farm then. So let's say you have chickens and you have cows and you have goats and pigs and everything, and they're all in the same cage. That's one thing. If you right-size all the cages, then you have a much healthier ecosystem. All the animals can be free to do it.
You're saying Sundar Pichai was about to pick Ruth Porat's eyes out?
Yes, I am.
Oh, peck.
And it was really getting bad. We were going to have to slaughter one of them. But
your point, but I think Mike, your point about the CEOs, about those operating units having CEOs is a big one that a bunch of people have made, that it makes it easier to retain people. It makes it easier to offer people things because they're going to be a CEO of an actual operating subsidiary, not just a part of Google, the thing that makes all the money.
And I think that's a bigger problem that people appreciate. It's not just CEOs, it's CFOs. It's all C-level.
Right now
it's
not, but eventually I presume each division will have its own C-levels.
Yes, and they have been bleeding employees over the last year or so. Google has been losing a lot of people.
Wouldn't you rather be the CFO of Calico than a low-level employee at Google?
They're basically saying, they're implying that if you want to do a startup, don't leave Google and start a startup. Start a new company under Alphabet, and we'll retain the talent and so on. I think it's brilliant all the way around.
One thing I wondered about, which I wrote about, I'd like to get your guys' thoughts. Why didn't YouTube become a separate subsidiary like Nest? I mean, it's
because they don't want to report YouTube's results.
YouTube, from a business perspective, YouTube very much belongs with Google because it's an algorithmically based advertising business.
Exactly.
The signals are harvested and from YouTube, and signals from search and other places are used in YouTube to provide relevant results and stuff. It's all about the algorithms and the advertising.
Yep, I absolutely agree.
But I think you could make just as strong an argument that it should be its own thing. I mean, it wants to become much more than just a search engine. It wants to become much more, I think, than just a
it's free to do that within. I mean,
but isn't the regulatory issue that Google faces most strongly the issue of promoting its own properties in search? One of the issues, I mean, from my point of view, I'd love to see Google I've said this many times, get out of the content business. Why not spin off YouTube?
Well, I have this argument regularly. It's not really in the content business, it's in the content serving business. It doesn't own the content.
It wants to be in the content business, though,
It wants to be in the content business.
It knows where the conflict is.
It wants to be in any business can be generated with algorithms. But the weird thing, the reason people are concerned, it's not crazy to think that YouTube would have been spun out as a separate company because it was already a subsidiary. It already has a CEO.
Right.
So it is surprising in that sense.
I think you guys are overthinking this. Here's what I think this is all about.
We're professionals, Leo. This is what
we usually underthink, Leo. So this would be something new.
Here's what I think this is all about, and I do believe them when they say this has been something. The story is that Salman Kamangar came to the board years ago, like several years ago, and said, you guys should think about this. And then they've been chewing on it, and something like this doesn't happen overnight. It's probably been in the works for a year or so. But here's what I really think is happening. I think what really happened is that Larry wants to step down. Wants Sundar Pichai to be CEO. And because I think Larry's tired of, and he even kind of implies this, tired of taking meetings about search and ads.
Yeah.
He doesn't want to go to those meetings anymore, but he knows it would be a big hit if he said, I'm going to become executive chair, and because truthfully, and this is my question, couldn't you do everything they've done without this compartment?
You totally could.
This is just what this is a reorg. Many companies have done this. Google themselves have done this.
Larry is too big for the normal route. The normal route is you become a VC. He's too big to be a VC. I think this is hand
waving. I think this is all saying, pay no attention to the fact that I'm going to step down and Sundar's going to be the CEO.
I think you're right. You're right in the tactical view, Leo, but in the strategic view, I think they're also trying to build a company for the ages. And if Larry gets
I agree. I'm not saying that there aren't subsidiary benefits. Yes. There are absolutely subsidiary benefits. There are also subsidiary negatives, risks, because they've said specifically they're going to provide Q4 reports for every segment.
And this makes Larry, as somebody said, a capital allocator. That's really his job.
And that's what he says his job will be.
To your point, it's he is a VC in that sense.
We will rigorously. This is the salient paragraph.
Alphabet is about businesses prospering through strong leaders and independence. In general, our model is to have a strong CEO who runs each business with Sergey and me in service to them as needed. That means not running it. I mean, service means, oh, you need some money? Right. Let me get the checkbook out. We will rigorously handle capital allocation. Rigorously handle capital allocation. That term rigorously is interesting.
Sounds painful.
And work to make sure each business is executing well. We'll also make sure we have a great CEO for each business, and we'll determine their compensation. In addition, with this new structure, and this is interesting that you pointed out this doesn't have to be done, but they've said, with this new structure, we plan to implement segment reporting for our Q4 results. Google financials will be provided separately than those for the rest of the Alphabet businesses as a whole. They don't have to do that. Sounds to me like there may be this will facilitate spin-outs by doing that, spin-offs by doing that.
But when you say risks, Leo, when you say risks, think about this. So now you have Larry and Sergey sitting there with a big pile of money that Google has produced
on the jet.
Right? It's still the growth engine, and they've got all these CEOs. They're no longer VPs of such and such a unit. They're now CEOs of operating subsidiaries who have to come and say, I want X% of Google's money to do this. And then Larry and Sergey have to slice up the dough and hand it out to those CEOs. It could actually create a lot more problems.
Well, yeah, you're right, Matthew. But here's the real risk: is that I think we'll be past the idea that Larry is a one-hit wonder. But let's just say that his hits are behind him, just for the sake of argument here. Then you're right.
What is he, 43?
No. I'm just saying he has no great idea.
If you were in the NBA, maybe. Okay, go ahead.
Let me. I believe fully that Larry Page
doesn't matter. He's going to live forever.
Let me make clear. He has many more huge incentive. I'm just trying to say structurally that then Matthew's point is right. Then all you're doing is divvying up Google's money for the future. But the other pressure on Google, which has been tremendous, is to diversify. And that's a key part of this, is 96 to 98% of their revenue is advertising. So by taking Alphabet and by getting into new businesses, which may take a while to grow, but new businesses that are not ad supported purely, then that diversifies the corporation as a whole. And that's been another huge pressure on them. But it only works if they create new businesses, and that's highly risky, like all entrepreneurial ventures are. And that's really where they are. So they're going to allocate capital, but unlike just a Warren Buffett, they're not going to just buy things. They're going to build new things and build entirely new industries. High risk, high return, high growth. So I think if that's the audacious goal, then the divvying up of Google's money shouldn't be an issue because there should be lots more money to be made by all these other divisions.
In the meantime, instead of having operating VPs of this and that, they have a bunch of CEOs who all now think, I'm the CEO of this damn thing. I don't have to, I should be running X company.
Oh, my guess is that if they're going to get good CEOs, they're going to let them do what they want. They're going to give them total autonomy, right? And if they make money, then they'll have. It'll be. You know what it is? It's serfdom.
It is. It's a feudal system.
It's a feudal system, and he's the lord of the manor.
Yes.
Yeah. But I've worked in many companies where newspaper chains, where you had 20 newspapers, each had a CEO, but you know what they did every month? They gave a bag of money to HQ,
right?
And HQ decided what to do with that. Right. That's quite normal.
Well, good. That's what's going to happen. And will Larry have to go to meetings?
Only if he wants to. No, only if it's on the jet.
No, Leo, meetings come to Larry.
Yeah. But, so my point, do you not think that this is retirement for Larry Page?
No, because I think it's retirement from the day-to-day of Google.
From Google,
I think it's Larry returning to his youth to build the new Googles.
Yeah, well,
it's a promotion.
Retirement means you get to do what you want. If you want to putter in the garden, you get to putter in the garden.
Yeah, but he's going to have higher goals than that. He's going to build.
Of course he is. But to me, it was. I mean, if I'm Larry Page, I'm sitting here. I'm going, God, I have to take another meeting on what color the homepage banner should be.
Or European regulators up our ass.
Yeah, Sundar, could you take this call for me? He doesn't want to run it day to day.
But who's going to referee between all those CEOs? Who's going to decide where that Google money goes?
Ruth Porat.
It's very clear.
There's only one division providing money. That's Google.
George Bush is the decider. Larry is the allocator.
Isn't though? What's Sergey's role in all of this?
What's his role now?
Project X, big ideas.
See, in my opinion, Sergey did this a few years ago.
Yeah.
And then Larry's looking at Sergey going, man, he's got this Project X. He's having fun. He's zooming around.
Doesn't wear shoes.
Rocket ships. And I'm sitting in a meeting about what color the Google banner is. Can we please?
Pay for his fun.
So I bet you he's going to watch his philanthropy, see what happens with his philanthropy. He's got a foundation. Watch what happens with Project X+1, the Larry Page version. I think this, but what would have happened if instead of this, Google went through some sort of reorg, and Larry said, "Now I'm going to go join the board," and Sundar Pichai is the CEO of Google. How would the market have reacted to that?
Down.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree.
Why don't I take Twit and spin off?
Make it an operating unit.
Actually, it is not an unheard of thing. For instance, if we're considering, and we have been considering buying a building, you wouldn't buy it as Twit. You would buy it as a separate operating division. Right. You'd create a new LLC. And then
why do you do that?
And then you rent another company. You rent back to Twit.
Oh, I see. Right.
I don't understand.
You could get the URL ABCBFD. And it's be great.
And the building would be owned by a numbered company listed in the Cayman Islands typically.
This is not unusual at all in business. In fact, Lisa's prior job, which was working for a massive development company, every development they did was a separate LLC. At one point, she was managing well over 100 LLCs.
Wow.
So that's it's not a bad way to do things because it does kind of separate the structure out.
Come to think of it, that's how Trump runs his business.
Yeah, that's right.
Because everybody else is a loser.
They're all stupid. You're stupid.
The reason why people kept thinking of Berkshire Hathaway is that Berkshire Hathaway started with the thing that makes the money.
Right.
And so there's this core business that just spins off vast amounts of cash.
But it's very different, right? It's just a holding company, right?
Right, but Warren invests that cash in other things. He doesn't build things. He's not trying to cure cancer, or he just buys a bit of like Coca-Cola and a bit of Dairy Queen and a bit of whatever. But it's a similar strategy. You have a money spewing thing at the core, and then that money gets doled out to different things.
It's been great to watch everybody from Danny Sullivan to you, Matthew, to you, Jeff, kind of try to tease out the meaning in all this.
My favorite was when it first happened, when the announcement first came out. I happened to be looking at Twitter, of course, and because my eyes were open.
Happened?
Yeah.
Or is it just something you do all the time?
The first things I saw were literally WTF with a bunch of exclamation marks. Because the first response was, "What the hell is going on? What does this even mean? What? I don't get it."
That was my reaction. We were on the air when we got the word. We were doing iOS Today.
My first reaction was that it was a joke or something like that.
I got a reporter coming to me saying, "I presume you've heard this. We want to talk to you about this." I thought, "What?" And I was driving, so I literally pulled off the road to go look. Because I said, "This is too big to just ignore and get to in 10 minutes."
See how much we need self-driving cars, Jeff. You could have just kept going.